Chapter 2906. The youth didn't try to suppress his voice. Not only did Zichen hear it clearly, but so did the divine generals nearby. Zichen stared blankly at the youth. He didn't expect that the youth would follow them for half a day just to express this. The surrounding divine generals were also stunned, but they soon burst out laughing. This trick again. Looks like it's not that we're lucky to run into them every time, but that they're saying it to everyone. I don't know how many times I've heard similar words. Haha, looks like they're desperate to find a sucker. Let's see which idiot will fall for it. The youth's expression didn't change when he heard the surrounding jeers. He stared at Zichen in the crowd and said, "Believe me, in 1,000 years, I'll awaken for the second time. At that time, I'll definitely be able to awaken my innate ability." The surrounding laughter grew louder. Being nurtured for 1,000 years, the chances of awakening were less than 1 in 10,000. Who would be so stupid to do such a thankless task? Looking at the frowning Zichen, Johnny said, "Although we didn't encounter such a thing the last time we came, it's said that it's not that rare. Some of the natives who haven't awakened are very unwilling, so they try to join other factions to obtain resources and try to awaken again." But Johnny glanced at the youth and said in a low voice, "But none of the natives brought back by those factions have awakened, and they've never brought back beggars who are waiting to die. Instead, they bring back natives who are unwilling to accept their fate and rely on hard work. The most important thing is that no one knows how old the Aboriginals are. At this time, he said that they still have 1,000 years to 10,000 years. Maybe they only have 600 years left. As for the remaining 400 years, they might return to nothingness one day." In everyone's view, these natives who were beggars were dishonest. In the beginning, many factions did their best to nurture them, but as time passed, they returned to nothingness one after another. Not a single faction had successfully nurtured a second awakening native. In the face of the surrounding sarcasm, the young beggar was expressionless. He stared at Zichen, but his eyes were very calm. It was as if he already knew that he had the final say in the group. Faced with such an unpredictable situation, everyone had no idea what to do. The young man looked at Zichen, and Zichen looked back at the young man. The two of them looked at each other, but neither of them flinched. "All right." Zichen nodded and said, "You can follow us?" The crowd burst into an uproar, and the mocking voices disappeared. Everyone looked at Zichen as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Even if they really saw a ghost, they shouldn't have such a big change because they were divine generals and weren't afraid of those things. "I'll take you to take a bath first, then change your clothes," Zichen said calmly, ignoring the gazes of the surrounding divine generals. The young beggar nodded and stopped talking. "That works too." Everyone around was dumbfounded. Some of the beggars in the distance also had a change in their expressions. They saw two more people quickly coming forward. "Take me in. After 1,200 years, I will also be able to awaken my innate ability." "Me too. I will be able to awaken it after 1,100 years." Two more young beggars blocked the way. They also stared at Zichen without averting their eyes, looking very sincere. "Let's go," Zichen said indifferently. A wave of energy spread out from his body, pushing the two away. "Why do you want him to leave us? Don't we look sincere enough?" One of the young beggars said unhappily, "He has been here for more than 1,000 years. He can't live for more than 1,000 years." Hearing the young man's words, the expressions of Tyrant and the others changed. Zichen's expression didn't change. He said, "Let's go. We have already told you the truth, but you still don't want to listen. You deserve to be deceived," the young beggar said coldly. Zichen left with his group, leaving the two indignant beggars behind. The divine generals in the surroundings discussed animatedly and soon left. The two beggars returned with nothing and were very depressed. They cursed that damn guy's luck and then turned back. However, they didn't leave the city. Instead, they walked toward a certain place in the city. When they came to a tall house, the two went around the house to the back door and knocked on the door. After a while, the back door opened. An old man who looked like a housekeeper looked at the two. "We found a big fish," one of the beggars said. The old man stepped aside and gestured for the two to enter. "Sir, we found a big fish." The two of them entered the house with great familiarity and shouted from outside the main hall. "How big is it?" An indifferent voice came from the main hall. "A very big fish. They are very generous to us. Not only do they have resources, but they also have a few beauties. They are all the type that you like. Sir, you can send someone to check. They are in the city." 2 pieces of heavenly beast crystals flew out from the living room. The indifferent voice sounded again. "If it is true, you will be rewarded." The two took the heavenly beast crystals and thanked him profusely. Then, they left through the back door. Zichen's group found an inn. Under the strange gazes of the immortal generals, the young beggar followed them upstairs. The young beggar went to his room to take a bath. The others gathered in Zichen's room. Everyone looked at Zichen. They didn't ask for the reason, but their expressions showed that they needed an explanation. Zichen thought for a while and said, "I feel that there is something unusual about that young man." This was Zichen's explanation. Although the others didn't feel that way, they didn't say anything. Although the young man was an ordinary person, Zichen had the world. He didn't need to worry that he would be a burden. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. "Come in." The door was pushed open and the young man walked out. He had changed into a new set of clothes. His young face looked very handsome. People's eyes couldn't help but light up. After coming in, the young man bowed to everyone and said, "Kangamo thanks everyone for taking me in." Zichen said, "We won't stay here for long. You can leave with the group, right?" Kangamo said, "Kangamo will go wherever Sir goes." Zichen nodded and said, "That's good. What resources can help you increase the success rate of your awakening?" Kangamo said, "Heavenly beast crystals." Zichen took out 3 pieces of heavenly beast crystals and put them on the table. He said, "Here are 3 pieces. Take them and refine them first. You can ask me for more when you are done." Kangamo was stunned when he saw the 3 pieces of heavenly beast crystals. He didn't immediately respond. "What's wrong? Not enough?" As he spoke, Zichen took out another 3 pieces. Kangamo came to his senses. He looked at Zichen and asked in confusion, "Sir, why don't you ask me how old I am?" Chapter 2907. The reason why Zichen was willing to take the youth with him wasn't because he heard the youth's words and felt that he could trust him. He also didn't really want to gain anything from the youth. He just felt that the youth looked a little different. At the same time, he felt emotional when he saw the other youth turn into nothingness. He had the ability to help a person. Even if he couldn't help him awaken, at least he could help him in the future. Of course, all of this was because he liked and appreciated the youth. "Thank you." Kangamo stepped forward to take the celestial beast crystal and thanked him again. "You should be familiar with Luke City, right?" Zichen asked after seeing Kangamo take the celestial beast crystal.
"Yes."
Kangamo nodded. "Then tomorrow morning, take us around the city and see if there's anything suitable for us," Zichen said. "Only the celestial beast crystal is suitable for you, sir. Nothing else is suitable." Kangamo looked at them and said, "Your auras are obviously different from others, so the armors and weapons sold here are not suitable for you." Zichen was surprised by his explanation and asked again, "Is there any other way?" Kangamo shook his head and said, "There's no other way, unless it's tailor-made. But in Luke City, no one should be willing to spend the effort to tailor it for you. Even if they were willing, they might not have the ability." Zichen nodded and didn't have any other hope. Seeing that Zichen didn't have any other instructions, Kangamo retreated. The others discussed a few more things and returned to their rooms to rest. The next day, everyone wandered around Luke City under Kangmo's lead. The armor sold in the shops were tailor-made with divine power as the foundation. They were treasures to divine generals, but to people like Zichen, they were useless. Of course, not all of them were useless. They were useful to Ichien, Li Ai, and Johnny. After looking at a few shops and not finding any suitable armors, Zichen looked at Kangamo and asked, "Is there a place that sells mid-grade armors?" Kangamo said, "There's only one place, but the mid-grade armors there are very expensive because no one in Luke City can make them. The battle armors here are all purchased from Tinny City. If you go to Tinny City, it will be much cheaper." Zichen looked at Ichien. Ichien said, "We're going to go deeper anyway, and we're not in a hurry." Zichen nodded and said, "All right, let's talk about it when we reach Tinny City." At this time, Zichen noticed that the two young beggars from yesterday were not far away. They were looking at him, or more accurately, at Kangamo, with a bit of coldness and resentment in their eyes. Kangamo obviously also noticed the existence of these two people, but he ignored them and came to Zichen's side and whispered, "Sir, you must be careful when you go out of the city. I suspect that your actions yesterday have attracted the attention of some people, or perhaps he has been deliberately betrayed." This had almost become an unwritten rule among the beggars. They treated everyone who gave them resources as fat sheep and informed certain forces in the city. Because these fat sheep could only give them resources once, they would definitely not give them the next time. Therefore, they didn't mind using these people's identities to go in another direction to exchange for some resources. Zichun was very surprised to know that such a situation would happen, but he didn't say much. In terms of human nature, he had his own unique views. After staying in the city for a few days, they decided to leave. These days, they almost didn't exchange for other resources because those resources were useless. On the same night, Johnny expressed his intention to leave. He had the battle armor, and his battle strength had been greatly improved. He already had the power to protect himself here, and it wouldn't be a problem even if he joined a force. Zichen and the others wanted to go deeper, but he didn't want to leave, or it could be said that he didn't have the strength to go deeper for the time being. He wanted to slowly become stronger here, and then go deeper, instead of relying on Zichen's protection. Zichen respected Johnny's choice and left him a generous amount of resources that day. Early the next morning, they left Luke City and headed to the next city. The second city was Tinny City, which was much bigger than Luke City. It was also much more lively. When they were leaving, some young beggars came forward. When they saw Kangamo in the group, their eyes revealed undisguised jealousy. This time, they didn't give anything, and everyone flew towards Tinny City. Zichen released his spiritual thoughts and saw the two young beggars running towards the city. He smiled. Kangamo noticed Zichen's smile, but didn't ask anything. "Stop!" Less than a mile out of the city, a cold voice came from behind. A divine general in battle armor flew towards them. Zichen and the others stopped and turned to look at him. "What?" Monk stared at him. "He can't leave." The divine general in battle armor pointed at Kangamo. Monk's face revealed a hint of anger, and he was about to explode. "Why?" Zichun was the first to speak. "The owner reported that he lost something, and I suspect that he stole it, so he can't leave," the divine general said coldly. Zichun smiled faintly and said, "Since he can't leave, then can we leave?" The divine general was stunned, and then his expression changed. He said, "No. You can't leave either. I suspect that he has already given it to you." "You idiot. If you want to imitate others, just say so. Why do you have to find such a lame excuse?" The monk mocked, "I really don't know. You're just one person. Where did you get the courage to stop us?" As soon as Monk finished speaking, figures flew out of the city one after another. Most of them were wearing battle armor. There were dozens of people surrounding them. Zichen looked at the divine general and said, "Are you planning to rob us? You stole something, and now you're saying that we're robbing you? You're really good at inverting right and wrong," the divine general said coldly, a cold light flashing in his eyes. "Then what do you want? If you know what's good for you, then come back with us for inspection. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude." Murderous intent surged, and the divine general's bodies lit up. Zichen shook his head and said, "This show is too fake. Why don't we just attack?" As soon as he finished speaking, Li AI decisively attacked. There were no rules here, and these people were just trying to find a cover for themselves. In the end, it all depended on combat strength. Li AI took a step forward, and the heaven-piercing divine needle turned into a beam of divine light and flew out. Chapter 2908. In the blink of an eye, all the divine generals without armor fell into a pool of blood and died. Such a scene caused the surrounding divine generals' expressions to change drastically. Their faces were filled with fear. The young beggars in the distance were even more shocked. Heavenly Needle. The divine general who came out first saw this scene, and his pupils constricted. He was very surprised, and then a look of greed appeared in his eyes. The number of divine generals was reduced by a third. Moreover, The other party had heavenly needle, so ordinary divine generals were vulnerable. A beam of light appeared in the divine general's hand. The light soared into the sky and exploded into energy. It was a message. How dare you kill people here? You're dead meat. After sending the message, the divine general snorted coldly. His cold expression was filled with arrogance. You're really shameless. But I like your shamelessness. I hope you won't disappoint me. The monk smiled, but his smile was filled with greed. The divine general was stunned. He didn't understand the origin of the monk's greed. After a few breaths, a cold voice came from the city. Who sent the message? A murderous aura surged out of the city like a surging tide. The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. A person walked out. He was wearing a divine armor, and his body was surrounded by divine light. He released a murderous aura, like a general who had fought for thousands of years. A group of people followed behind him. Each of them was wearing a general's armor. Their combined aura was very terrifying. The young beggars in the distance had never seen such a scene. They were so scared that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They retreated in horror. Behind those divine generals were two young beggars. They were the ones who sent the message. Now that they were enveloped by the murderous aura, although they tried to pretend to be calm, their pale faces betrayed their hearts. After following the group for a while, they finally couldn't stand the oppressive aura and retreated. However, they were further ahead than the other young beggars, deliberately showing that they were different. Sir, it's them. Not only did they steal, but they also killed people without distinguishing right from wrong. The divine general in front turned around and cupped his fists at the newcomers. He said respectfully. Zichun watched this scene quietly. His expression didn't change much. Kang Imo was an ordinary person. Standing beside Zichun, his face turned pale. Who would have thought that he would encounter such a situation after taking such a big gamble? While the others looked calm, the greed in the monk's eyes grew stronger. How dare you? The divine general, who was emitting a murderous aura, glanced at Zichun and paused on Su Mingyao and the other girls. His cold eyes flashed as he shouted, How dare you kill people in Luke City? You're courting death. The murderous aura released by so many godly generals had already alerted the people in the city. Many godly generals flew out and stood in the distance to watch. They didn't ask what had happened because there was no need to. In this place, even a small matter could trigger a life and death battle. And the purpose of all battles was also for the sake of benefits. They recognized the person in front of them, and their faces were filled with surprise. The other party's influence in Luke City was enormous, and their combat strength was also extremely strong. Just as the godly general was about to say something, the monk said loudly, Hey, I see that your armor isn't bad, but why isn't it middle grade? At this moment, surrounded by a group of godly generals, facing a battle that could break out at any time, he actually said such a thing. Was this the problem they should be thinking about? How dare you? My armor is the peak of the low grade. The level 9 divine general, who was emitting a murderous aura, said coldly. The monk shook his head regretfully and said, Isn't that still low grade? I see that you can bring so many people here at once, so your status in Luke City shouldn't be low. Why don't you even have a piece of middle grade armor? You're so low-key, how can you live up to your status? The level 9 divine general was furious. The others were also speechless. They were here to kill. In the face of danger, the other party was actually fussing about the quality of his armor? But after the level 9 divine general shouted, they understood why the other party was fussing about the quality of his armor. Powerful auras surged, and these people also erupted. Kang Imo disappeared from Zichen's side. Zichen's figure flashed, and he appeared at the side. A long saber appeared in his hand, and he instantly unsheathed it. Saber light flashed, and the light of yin and yang surged. The saber light landed on the nearby level 9 divine generals, and the armor on their bodies began to distort. A powerful force surged, and their bodies flew backward. As they flew backward, the defense of their armor was broken. A single saber strike broke through the defense of several armors. Cries of surprise came from all around, and the divine generals in the distance were shocked. Swish! Beside the divine generals who flew backward, black light flashed. The sound of weapons piercing flesh rang out, and the divine generals who flew backward lost their vitality as they fell. Sounds of tremors came from other directions, and then one after another, the defense of their armor was broken. The devil ape, Lei Ting, Xing Chun, and the others all had the combat strength to break armor. When they attacked with all their strength, the divine generals around them had no power to resist. Johnny appeared when he heard the news. When he saw the battle in front of him, he shook his head, and a look of pity appeared on his face. Along the way, he was very familiar with the combat strength of Zichun and the others. These people who took the initiative to find trouble with them were simply asking for death. Bang! A powerful force shook, and the level 9 divine general in the lead flew backward. The monk stood in front of him and said, "Look, if it was a mid-grade armor, would you be in such a sorry state?" The spectators in the distance were extremely shocked. The divine general who flew backward was Divine General Fuka, and he was very famous in Luke City. His combat strength was also one of the best, and they didn't expect him to be sent flying with a single strike. Although his defense didn't break, his sorry state was seen by everyone. Clearly, his opponent was stronger. "You're courting death." A divine saber appeared in Fuka's hand. His expression became extremely cold, and he slashed at the monk. "You want to play saber with me?" The monk's eyes flashed with disdain, and he waved his demon subduing pestle like a long saber. The sky was filled with Buddhist light, and with a mighty aura, it collided with the long saber. Turbulent energy collided as the monk and Fuka fought. The little beggars in the distance were too shocked to say a word as they watched the battle in front of them. The two who thought they'd done a good job earlier had retreated to God knows where. Too many of the Warframe divine generals had died. Zichun could break several armors with each slash, and Zhang Haoyan followed suit. After a large number of divine generals died, they wanted to retreat in fear. Zichun glanced at the monk and said, "End this quickly, we still have to hurry." "Haha, I'm leaving. I won't play with you anymore." The monk laughed loudly, and his aura changed. A palm print fell from the sky. 1 palm, 2 palms. After 3 palms, the defense on Fuka's body exploded. Chapter 2909. When Fuka and the monk fought earlier, they were barely evenly matched. He thought that their combat strength was about the same. Who knew that the monk would break through his defense with 3 palms? He was horrified. Only now did he realize how terrifying his opponent was. The divine generals watching the battle from afar were also shocked. They stared at the monk in disbelief. Murderous intent appeared in the monk's eyes. He charged forward like a bolt of golden lightning. "Stop!" A loud shout came from the city. The voice was still in the city at first, but when the last word was spoken, the person was already outside the city. A sharp whistling sound was heard. A divine sword pierced through the air and arrived in front of the monk. The divine sword clashed with the demon subduing pestle. A powerful divine light rippled and the divine sword was sent flying. The monk retreated backward. Fuka was still scared. He was secretly glad that he had brushed shoulders with death. Putting away the demon subduing pestle, the monk looked forward. When he saw who it was, his eyes lit up. The person in front of him was wearing dazzling armor and exuded a powerful aura. It was the mid-grade armor that the monk had been eyeing. In the entire team, only Zichun had it. "What's going on?" The person in the mid-grade armor glanced at the corpses on the ground and said coldly, "They stole something. Not only did they not follow us back to check, but they also killed people here." Fuka stepped forward and said, "City Lord, you have to do us justice." To be able to wear a mid-grade armor, the person's status was obviously not low. They did not expect him to be the City Lord of Luke City. Zichun was a little surprised, but he did not care too much. He was not afraid of anyone at the same level. He looked at the City Lord quietly. "Is this true?" The City Lord's gaze swept across the area. "Hey, this should be a mid-grade armor, right?" The monk said, staring at the City Lord's armor. The City Lord did not know what the monk meant. He said proudly, "Of course." Seeing that the monk was about to say something, Zichun quickly said, "I believe the City Lord can see the truth. These people are just after our resources. That's why they're here to cause trouble." "You're talking nonsense," Fuka said coldly. "This is utter nonsense." Zichun smiled faintly and said, "Whether it's nonsense or not, I'm sure the city lord knows." At this time, more divine generals flew out of the city. They were all wearing battle armor. The murderous aura on their bodies was getting thicker and thicker. Moreover, their auras were condensed together, making them look like well-trained soldiers. "It's the city guards." Cries of alarm came from afar, and all the divine generals retreated. More than 200 city guards had arrived. They stood in the air and stood behind the city lord in an orderly manner. The baleful aura on their bodies was extremely intense. "City lord, they are simply slandering us. They stole things and killed people, and now they are accusing us." Beside the mayor, Fuchs said with righteous indignation, "Despicable, too despicable. If we don't kill them, we won't be able to appease the anger of the citizens." Zichun looked at the city lord, waiting for his decision. Tyrant and the others didn't say anything. The city lord's line of sight moved again. This time, it paused slightly on Su Mingyao and the other women. He knew Fuchs, so he naturally knew his nature. However, these women were obviously different from the ones he usually encountered. They were stunning, beautiful, and had their own temperament. It was hard not to be moved by them. However, these people's combat strength was obviously not weak. Against those existences, they were practically crushing them. "City Lord, these beauties are all stunning. If we let them go today, it will be difficult to meet them next time. For these beauties, we can definitely give it our all. Moreover, they have a lot of resources on them. Apart from that, there is also the heavenly god needle. Although it is an imitation, it is indeed extraordinary." At this time, he heard Fuchs' voice transmission. "City Lord, with the city guards, we will mainly use joint battle techniques. I believe these people will definitely die. Moreover, you have a mid-grade battle armor. These people won't be able to break through your defense." The city lord's expression was cold. No one could tell whether he was happy or angry. Fuchs said, "City Lord, don't be deceived by them. These people have evil intentions and are vicious. If you let them go today, they will definitely submit in the future. They might even become worse. Who knows how many people they will kill. City Lord, you must punish them. City Lord, please punish them." The other survivors who followed Fuchs said in unison. Seeing this, Zichun smiled. He looked at the city lord and said, "It seems the city lord already has an answer." The city lord said coldly, "You stole first and killed second. Naturally, I can't let you go. If you surrender now, I will deal with this matter impartially." Zichun had already noticed the pause in the city lord's eyes and guessed what he was thinking, so he said, "I think that before making a decision, the city lord should carefully consider it to avoid irreversible consequences." "Are you threatening me?" The city lord's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he released his aura. "I'm just stating a fact," Zichun said indifferently. "The fact is that you stole, killed, and then are unforgivable." Clearly, the city lord had made up his mind. His eyes flashed coldly as he shouted, "Capture them. If they dare resist, kill them without mercy." As soon as the city lord finished speaking, Tyrant laughed before the others could say anything. "Since you want to fight, why did you talk so much nonsense? You're wasting my time." The divine generals in the distance changed their expressions. Clearly, they didn't expect the city lord to join in. Fuchs' people rushed forward, and the city guards behind them also scattered into groups of a dozen. Their auras condensed together like a sharp sword ready to be unsheathed. Tyrant rushed toward the city lord. The city lord's eyes flashed fiercely as he stabbed out with his sword. Bang! With a loud bang, Tyrant's body flew into the air. He spun in the air and flew toward the city guards. The city lord had mid-grade armor, so it would be difficult for him to deal with them. So, he wasn't stupid enough to fight them. When the city guards saw Tyrant coming, 10 of them stepped forward and gathered their strength together. Their divine power converged in the air, forming a dazzling divine sword. A powerful aura erupted from the divine sword. That's the city guards' joint attack. The city lord is leading the city guards. This time, they're probably doomed. Seeing the divine sword, cries of alarm rose from all around. Buzz! The divine sword trembled, and divine light rippled out from its surface. The divine sword pierced straight toward Tyrant. Looking at the sword, Tyrant smiled faintly, and a light shield appeared in his hand. The patterns on the light shield lit up and blocked in front of him. The divine sword fell on the light shield, and a powerful force wreaked havoc. Chapter 29:10. The city guard's individual combat strength was not strong and was only equivalent to an ordinary level 9 divine general with armor. The most terrifying thing about them was that they could use a joint attack. The joint attack could gather their essence, chi, and spirit to unleash their strongest combat strength. This was also why the city guards were so fearsome. However, this powerful move seemed to have lost its original effect in front of Monk. Monk stood there with a light shield protecting his body and Buddhist light lingering around him. He allowed the divine sword to wreak havoc, but did not move an inch. The light shield dissolved the power of the divine sword, but the light on the surface of the shield became brighter and brighter. In the next moment, the patterns on the light shield lit up one by one, and a powerful rebounding force was emitted. The divine sword exploded, and the divine generals in front were sent flying. Seeing that Monk had broken the joint attack, the divine generals in the distance were very surprised. Kill! Shouts rang out as more divine generals rushed forward. This time, there were more of them. The more people there were in the joint attack, the stronger the combat strength. At this moment, nearly 50 divine generals were attacking together. The divine sword formed was much more powerful. Buzz! Monk still held the shield to block. Buddhist light lingered around his body, and his expression turned slightly solemn. The divine sword contained terrifying energy and kept attacking the light shield. However, it could not penetrate the light shield. All the attacking energy was blocked by the light shield. With an energy boom, the divine sword exploded, and the dozens of divine generals were sent flying. Even this is not enough? The divine generals in the distance widened their eyes in disbelief. A quarter of the divine generals were attacking together, but they could not break through one person's defense. There were still others on the other side. How could they fight this battle? Kill! At this moment, a cold voice rang out. The city lord had made his move. His aura rose to the peak. A terrifying pressure surged from the middle-grade armor as he rushed towards Zichun. Zichun looked at the city lord who was charging towards him, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He thrust his sword forward. Divine light lingered around it, and ripples shot out. Swish! Zichun's body was pierced by the sword. The scattered sword chi cut his body into countless pieces. The city lord's pupils constricted. He turned around with his sword and slashed horizontally. A bright sword light appeared and brought out a colorful sword arc that illuminated the surroundings. Clang! A long saber pierced through the air, and when the saber and sword collided, there was a powerful shockwave that forced the city lord to retreat. You're not weak. Retreating over Tinjong, the city lord's eyes flickered with a sharp glint as he gripped his sword and charged forward once more. Zichun smiled and said, "I'm not going to play with you." After saying that, he retreated in a flash, and the surface of his body flickered. Can you walk? Divine light surged from the city lord's body as his speed skyrocketed once again as he chased after Zichun. But in the next moment, his expression changed abruptly. He saw the space in front of him distort, and divine light burst out from it. A long spear swept toward him like a rod. The power of this attack surged, distorting the space around it. An ear-piercing sound reverberated throughout the world. Boom! Energy rumbled as divine light rippled in all directions. The city lord retreated into the distance. He raised his head and looked ahead. A look of disbelief appeared on his face as he cried out involuntarily, "Mid-grade battle armor." This exclamation attracted the attention of many people who were looking at the monk. Until now, the city guards had not been able to break through his defense. Their gazes fell on the city lord, and then they followed his gaze. They saw a divine general standing in the sky. His expression was cold, and he looked exactly like the leader of the group from before. They were like twins. But that was not the main point. The main point was that the armor on his body was shining brightly and releasing a suffocating aura. This aura was even slightly stronger than the city lord's. Everyone knew what this meant, so everyone had a look of shock on their faces. They did not expect the enemy to have such a trump card. Fuko also saw this scene, and his expression changed drastically. The city guards had not been able to break through the monk's defense, and now the city lord was facing an evenly matched opponent. This battle was back to square one. Just as he was about to panic, a cold voice suddenly rang out, "Leave no one alive." These words came from Zichun. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, he did his best not to provoke others. But if anyone provoked him, he would not let them go. Fuko sensed the danger and wanted to retreat. Suddenly, a hurricane appeared around him, carrying an indescribable pressure. Fuko felt his speed being affected. The next moment, a beam of yin and yang appeared in front of him. When he saw this light, his expression was one of shock. He knew what this attack meant. He roared and blocked with all his might. With a boom, his weapon flew out of his hand and his body flew backward. The defense he had just put up was shattered once again. One attack had broken through his defense. Fuko was horrified, and his heart was filled with regret. If he had known his opponent was so strong, he would not have come. At this moment, he saw a flash of black light from the corner of his eye. Fuko could no longer see anything after that. After breaking through his defense, Zichun did not look at Fuko again. He flashed toward his second target. Wherever his attack landed, a divine general's defense would be broken. The battle returned to how it was before. The surrounding divine generals fled in terror, but this time, not a single one of them could escape. Lei Ting, the demonic ape, and the others were fighting the city guards. Their joint attack was indeed powerful, but the demonic ape and the others were not weak either. Thus, the two sides were barely even. Soon, all of Fuko's men were killed. Zichun stood in the air, his expression cold as he turned toward his divine avatar. The avatar danced with his spear and fought fiercely against the city lord. Divine light erupted and powerful energy surged, sending the city lord flying again and again. Although he was wearing mid-grade armor, his combat strength was clearly inferior to the avatar's. In the midst of the battle, the city lord was both shocked and furious. He roared, "All city guards, come out! Everyone in Luke City attack! Kill these people, and this city lord will reward you handsomely." Generous rewards would attract brave men. This saying made sense, but it was not absolute. After hearing the city lord's words, many people were tempted, but no one dared to step forward. The impenetrable divine needle could easily slaughter divine generals without armor. While those with armor didn't fear the needle, others could easily break through their defenses. If this battle were evenly matched, many people would be willing to charge forward. Unfortunately, this was a battle of slaughter. Whoever charged forward would die. Naturally, no one would be foolish enough to do so. After all, Fuko had been killed. Of course, the city guards dared to charge forward. Because they knew how to fight together, they had not lost a single person. More city guards appeared in the city. There were quite a few of them. Seeing this, Zichun's killing intent surged as he charged forward. A combined divine sword flew toward him, carrying with it a vast amount of power. Zichun gripped his blade and unsheathed it. Yin-yang light shot forward. Hiss! The light swept past the divine sword, and it dissipated. Chapter 29:11. Buzz. A saber arc shot out from the saber like a waterfall. The saber arc slashed forward, sweeping past the city guards in front of him. The powerful energy vibrated. Their joint attack was broken, and they were sent flying backward. As they flew backward, their defenses were broken one after another. A black light flashed like a black lightning bolt, moving around the city guards who had their defenses broken. When the black light disappeared, the city guards who had their defenses broken had all become corpses. Zichun slashed again. The saber light swept past the other city guards who were in shock. Their defenses were broken as expected. Then, they became corpses. 3 slashes from the saber had destroyed a team of city guards. People in the distance exclaimed. Zichun's fighting power was more terrifying than they had imagined. At this moment, they had to admit that Fuka and the city master had provoked someone they shouldn't have. Fuka had paid the price with his life. They didn't know how the city master would deal with this. Boom! An explosion came from the front. It was Tyrant who had rushed to the front. The joint attack of nearly 100 people had been broken by him. Behind him, a giant Buddha shadow appeared. The Buddha shadow connected the sky and the earth. It was full of pressure and holy light shot out everywhere. A palm fell. A vast aura surged. The Buddha light illuminated the land, reflecting the shocked faces of the level 9 divine generals. As the Buddha's palm fell, a loud boom resounded. These divine generals were sent flying in all directions. As they flew backwards, many of their external defenses were broken. At this moment, breaking their defenses meant death. Zhang Haoyan was like the shadow of death, hovering around the city guards who had their defenses broken. Swoosh! Wang Xian slashed forward with her sword. The joint attack had been broken. Endless thunderbolts fell from the sky like chains connecting the sky and the earth. They rumbled and wreaked havoc in front of them. Blood-curdling screams were heard. The divine generals in the joint attack were sent flying backward. The same scene happened in several other places. The people Ziqian had brought were the ones with the most potential on the life star. They were also the strongest. Although they weren't ranked divine generals, they definitely had the strength to be on the list. The spectators in the distance looked ahead in shock. In their hearts, the city guards and the city lord were the most terrifying existences in Luke City. Since they had made a move, it was likely that these people were doomed. As for the cause of this matter, it was actually not important at all. Although it was clear who was right and who was wrong, it was meaningless. Here, whoever was stronger was right. If the city lord killed all these people, then he was right, and these dead people would be charged with crimes. The reverse was also true. The fluctuations coming from the surroundings were too terrifying. Those ordinary beggars had already run away. They stood further away to watch the battle. Among them, the two little beggars were even more terrified. If something happened to the city lord, then no one would be able to protect the two of them. Boom! At this moment, there was a loud explosion in front of them. The city lord was sent flying, and the armor on his body began to distort and become unstable. Whoosh! The divine avatar moved forward, thrusting out with his spear. On the tip of the spear, lines of runes lit up as a powerful aura was released. There was another explosion, and the weapon in the city lord's hand was sent flying. The divine avatar's expression was cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. The third attack came. Misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding. The city lord flew backward. His defense had not been broken, but he was extremely terrified and shouted loudly. The divine avatar did not respond. In his eyes, there was no misunderstanding, only life or death. There was an uproar. Clearly, the city lord had been defeated and was asking for a truce. Unfortunately, the other party did not agree. There was another explosion, and the city lord's mid-grade armor was broken. Misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. I believe you. It's all Fuka's fault. With his defense broken, the city lord was even more terrified and kept shouting. The divine avatar's cold fourth spear arrived. This spear was even more powerful, straight and sharp. It pierced the city lord's throat. The city lord's mouth was open as if he wanted to say something, but he could no longer say a word. His terrified eyes gradually lost their luster. The long spear was pulled out, and the city lord fell to the ground. With the city lord killed, more than half of the city guards on the other side had also died. The remaining ones saw that the situation was hopeless and fled in terror. The battle ended just like that. The ground was littered with corpses, and the stench of blood permeated the air. The surroundings were extremely quiet. No one had expected these people to possess such terrifying fighting strength. Even the city lord, who was wearing mid-grade armor, had been killed. In a flash of light, Kang Imo appeared. He didn't know what was happening outside and was extremely anxious. His face was full of worry. However, when he saw everything around him, his eyes widened in disbelief. At this moment, everyone was cleaning up the battlefield. Kang Mo's gaze swept over the battlefield, dazzled by the armor. He looked around and saw that Lord Ziqin's men were still there, and they seemed to be unharmed. He thought of an unbelievable possibility and was even more shocked. At this moment, he noticed a piece of armor. His expression changed drastically as he cried out, "Mid-grade armor." The divine general in mid-grade armor had already lost all signs of life. Zichen asked, "Do you know him?" Kang Emo shook his head, indicating that he did not know him. "He's the city lord." Zichen's next words gave Kang Emo a fright. The city lord was a high and mighty figure with a group of city guards as his subordinates. How could this dead man be the strongest city lord? "Do you know where he has a property in the city?" Zichen asked again. This time, Kang Emo nodded. He had been here for more than 1,000 years. Even if he was a beggar who was bullied every day, he had heard of some big shots. "Let's go." Zichen nodded. At this moment, Tyrant and the others had finished cleaning up the battlefield. Under Kang Mo's lead, they walked into the city again. In the distance, the little beggars looked at Kang Emo, who was leading the way with complicated expressions. There was envy, but no jealousy or hatred. They didn't dare to. Zichen didn't just visit the city lord's property. He also went to the city lord's mansion. Then, he went to Fuka's house. After inquiring about Fuka's property, he went there as well. When he came out, Tyrant was beaming with joy. Even Li Ai's pretty face was full of joy. Li Ai and Yi Qian were both wearing battle armor. Their battle armor emitted a powerful pressure. It was a mid-grade armor. Coincidentally, the only property in the city that sold armor belonged to the city lord. When they left the city, the whole city was in discussion. Everyone was shocked by what had happened today. Kang Emo gradually came to know what had happened. While he was equally shocked, he also breathed a sigh of relief. He had made the right bet this time. At the same time, he made a decision. In the wilderness at night, flames rose. Zichen and the others sat by the bonfire. There was wine and meat beside them. Kang Emo looked at everyone and walked towards Zichen. "Sir, I have something to say," Kang Emo said with a serious expression. Everyone turned to look at Kang Emo. They were confused about what he wanted to say. Kang Emo didn't speak. His body glowed. The space behind him began to distort and a small world opened. Chapter 29:12. Zichen had stayed with the craftsman ancestor and had seen him refine tools, so he naturally recognized the facilities. Seeing the small world behind Kang Emo, he was startled and said, "What are you?" The others were also curious, but they did not understand what was going on. "Sir, this is my innate ability," Kang Emo said. "I've awakened it long ago, more than 1,000 years ago." Everyone was very surprised to hear this. After awakening, the natives could refine battle armor and had a very high status in the city. Since Kang Emo had awakened long ago, why was he still a beggar? Or had he been a beggar for more than 1,000 years? Among the group, Zichen was the most puzzled. Kang Emo should have been bullied every day in these years, so why was he still hiding his identity? "This is my father's idea. He said he would come to pick me up, and before he comes, I'm not allowed to be exposed." Speaking of his father, Kang Emo lowered his head, his mood becoming low. "My father and I agreed to meet in 1,000 years, but now it's been 1,300 years. At that time, my father said that if he didn't come, I should find a way to leave Luke City. But the premise was that I had to find someone I trusted and reliable, or I had to stay here. After so long, Kang Mo's father had not come, so something must have happened." Zichen said, "Why did you choose us?" "Because your auras are different, and the battle armor here is useless to you. But I happen to know how to customize battle armor." Kang Emo said, "I want to join you first, but I won't reveal my identity for the time being." Kang Emo wanted to join the team because of the kind side of Su Mingyao and the others, and because of the different auras of Zichen and the others. If Su Mingyao and the others were not kind and fierce, even if Zichen and the others were suitable, he would not join. But that was only the first step. He still had to see if the people in this team were reliable. He was very touched when Zichen gave him 6 heavenly beast crystals. Then, Zichen's words made him see Zichen's character. In the next few days, the others did not show any repulsion toward him, and even treated him very well. They clearly knew that he had not yet awakened, and it was unlikely that he would awaken in the future, but they still treated him extremely well. Clearly, this was a team that could be trusted. However, he still did not intend to reveal his identity. He wanted to follow the group and see how it went. He never thought that he would run into trouble as soon as he left the city. At that time, Kang Emo was very nervous and worried. For the first time in more than 1,000 years, he was willing to stay in a team. It was also the first time he was willing to reveal his identity. He prayed that nothing would happen to this team. Who would have thought that the final result would give him a huge shock? Even the strongest city lord had been killed. He already had a good impression of this team and wanted to join them. Now that they were so strong, Kang Mo didn't plan to hide his identity. Hearing Kang Mo's explanation, everyone looked at Zichun with strange expressions. At that time, they were not optimistic about Kang Mo. Only Zichun expressed that he wanted to keep him. Could it be that he had discovered something long ago? Of course, Zichun did not know that the other person had already awakened. He just saw that he was different from the other beggars and liked his character. He did not have any other thoughts. Who would have thought that he would actually pick up a treasure? Can you customize battle armor? Asked Zichun. Kang Mo nodded and said, it's a skill passed down in my family. I can customize battle armor according to different attributes. Compared to my custom-made battle armor, the battle armor sold in this world is the lowest grade. Kang Mo glanced at Yiqian and Li Ai and said, like the middle-grade battle armor on the two sisters, it's only a little higher than the lowest grade. When everyone heard this, they were all overjoyed. How was this picking up a treasure? This was clearly picking up a great treasure. Can you refine it now? Or do you need some time to grow? Refining is our innate magical ability. We can refine it as long as we awaken it. As for custom-made battle armor, although it's more difficult, I can still refine it. It's just that the grade won't be too high. Of course, if the refining is successful, the grade will be higher than the low-grade battle armor worn by divine generals. As the proficiency level increases, the grade will be higher and higher. Zichun nodded and said, well, then you can try to refine it first. The materials are here. You can see what suits you, and then decide who to refine it for. Kang Mo entered Zichun's world. There were many resources there, all of which were under Kang Mo's control. Kang Mo disappeared. Everyone looked at Zichun curiously. Seems like my luck is not bad. Zichun smiled. The others also had smiles on their faces. Although the devil ape and the others had battle armor, it was the battle armor of the divine realm. It was not suitable for them, but now it was good. Soon, Kang Mo appeared again and said, those resources can be used to refine several types of battle armor. If it's custom-made at the beginning, refining a set will be very slow. Because I've never made battle armor before, I need to be familiar with it. This will take some time. Zichun said, how can you speed it up? Kang Mo said, first, I'll refine ordinary battle armor suitable for you, just like the low-grade battle armor worn by divine generals. But it's only suitable for you, not custom-made. Kang Mo obviously meant that they needed to be familiar with it first. Practice makes perfect. But this way, the battle armor at the early stage will definitely not be used at the later stage. It will cause unnecessary waste. Kang Mo said, go ahead and refine it. It won't be wasted. Even if we don't use it, we can take it back. Zichun said, don't worry and go ahead. You can distribute the resources there. There are also heavenly beast crystals. You can use as much as you want. Thank you, my lord. Kang Mo's face was filled with joy. After saluting Zichun with cupped fists, he entered Zichun's world again. Next, he would wholeheartedly refine battle armor. As a native, Kang Mo's innate ability was to refine battle armor. Zichun and the others continued to move towards Tenny City. 2 months later, they arrived at Tenny City. It was more lively than Luke City. Moreover, general armor was very common. It was difficult to find someone who was not wearing one. Zichun's arrival without his battle armor immediately attracted a lot of attention, but no one came to find trouble. After staying in Tenny City for a few days, they saw a place that sold mid-grade battle armor. But Yiqian and Li Ai already had mid-grade battle armor, so they naturally did not need it. After staying for a few days, they continued to go deeper. Their goal was to enter the deepest part and find a way to break through to the king's stage. They continued to move forward and went deeper into 2 more cities. Walking on the wasteland, it started to rain one day. The rain was very heavy. Everyone's body emitted light, blocking the rain as they walked in the heavy rain. The rain continued for a few days without any signs of stopping. This kind of weather was not common, so no one felt anything unusual. The only strange thing was that they did not encounter any other heavenly beasts in the past few days. Monk, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped. He looked up at the sky in the distance and was stunned. Chapter 29:13. Everyone was looking at a giant python in the sky. It was circling in the sky like a real dragon, and light was flowing around its body. It had 5 heads, and they all looked the same. However, the light they emitted was different, and the aura was also different. It circled in the sky, and the space around it was distorted, but there was no fluctuation. What is that? A 5-headed python? Monk looked up at the circling python, and his eyes were filled with surprise. Everyone came here together. Monk didn't know, and Zichun and the others naturally didn't know. Kongimo, do you have time now? Kongimo, who was showing his innate ability to forge armor, suddenly heard Zichun's voice from the sky. Sir, you're looking for me? Kongimo looked up. I'm here to see something. See if you recognize it. Kongimo stood up, and the vision behind him disappeared. A passage appeared in front of him, and he walked into the passage. In a situation where no one knew what was in front of them, Zichun could only think of Kongimo. Kongimo walked out of the world, and the rain around him was stopped by an invisible force just as it fell on his body. He looked up at the sky and saw the abnormality in the sky. He rubbed his eyes, as if he couldn't believe it. Everyone looked at Kongimo. His expression indicated that he recognized that thing. No one urged him, and they waited for Kongimo to observe it carefully. It's really a 5-headed python. Kongimo exclaimed, I've only seen this thing in my inherited memories, and I've never seen it in real life. It's said that they live at the edge of this world, and it's very difficult to meet them. Every time we meet them, it's either a disaster or an opportunity. What do you mean? Everyone didn't quite understand. These 5-headed pythons are very powerful, and people who meet them often lose their lives, so it's a disaster. However, the material on its body is one of the main materials for tailor-made armor. The inner core is a divine item that can strengthen the physical body, and it's called a great opportunity. Kongimo said excitedly, heavenly pythons are divided into 5 levels, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 heads. They don't have heavenly beast crystals in their bodies, but they have condensed heavenly python inner cores. Once you refine the heavenly python inner cores, your physical body can be greatly improved, and it's said that it can be upgraded to the corresponding level. There are also different levels of physical bodies? The monk asked. Kongimo nodded and said, yes, after refining those heavenly beast crystal stones, the strength of one's body will increase, but at most it can only reach the 4th stage. But in this area, most of them are at the 1st stage or have no grade. The 2nd stage is already considered a powerhouse. I guess the Dead City Lord was at the 2nd stage. 3rd or 4th grade heavenly bodies were extremely rare, and after reaching the 4th grade heavenly body, in order to raise the strength of one's physical body, one would have to find a heavenly beast like the heavenly python that had an inner core. Furthermore, these heavenly beasts with inner cores were at least equivalent to a 5th grade heavenly body. The one in front of us is of the 5th rank. It can sweep away all divine generals below the 5th rank. Therefore, meeting it is both a disaster and an opportunity. Hearing Kongimo's words, everyone's expression changed. They looked up at the sky again, their eyes burning with eagerness. To them, this was clearly an opportunity that they could not miss. Then what grade is our corporeal body? Tyrant asked again. Kongimo shook his head and said, it is very difficult to determine the grade of the physical body. In the beginning, there is no accurate standard. Only when one reaches the 5th grade can there be a standard. What's the standard of level 5? They were all very curious. It can easily shatter a low-grade armor. It can easily break the defense of a mid-grade armor. Hearing Kongimo's words, everyone's expression changed. What kind of strength would it take to shatter an armor with one's physical body? They looked at Zichun. Even he, the first on the ranking of generals, could not do it, right? It will be very difficult for the divine generals who come here to break through again. So they try to find a way to break through by relying on their physical body. The higher the grade of the physical body, the stronger the combat power. Everyone could understand this point. They were all 9th-level divine generals. Except for those special existences, there was not much difference in their combat power. Once there was a gap in the strength of the physical body, there would be an obvious difference in the combat power of both sides. If the being in the sky had a fifth-stage corporeal body, wouldn't it mean that it could easily break a mid-grade armor? Let me try. Just as everyone was frowning, Tyrant flew forward with a light shield in his hand. Raindrops fell on Tyrant's body, emitting white smoke like a dense fog. Tyrant's Buddhist light surrounded him, illuminating the surroundings. The falling raindrops evaporated before they could get close to him. The five-headed sky python noticed Tyrant. One of its mouths opened and let out a hiss. The space in front of them was distorted. Huge rocks appeared in the sky one after another. They were like meteorites as they whizzed toward Tyrant. Bang! Bang! A tremor was heard as energy vibrated. Tyrant moved forward in a straight line among the meteorites. All the meteorites that fell on him were shattered by the light shield. He forced a path out of the meteorites and moved forward in a straight line. Among the group, Tyrant's defense was the strongest. It was not a bad idea to let him test the opponent's strength. After Tyrant rushed out of the group of meteorites, the sky python opened its mouth again. This time, a golden light shone. Countless sharp blades appeared in the sky, as if a golden rain of swords was falling from the sky. The falling rain of swords tore the real raindrops apart. More steam rose like a large cloud. Its 5 heads represent the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Kongimo looked at the golden rain of swords falling from the sky and said, "These were all things in his inherited memory." As a native of this world, when he awakened his innate ability, he would also awaken many memories. Tens of thousands of swords fell on Tyrant's body. The swords were shattered one after another. Feeling the power of the swords, Zichun and the rest were silently calculating in their hearts. Based on the current situation, such an attack was not strong and could not break through their defense. Tyrant safely passed through the rain of swords. Then, he encountered a sea of fire. In the sea of fire, a powerful flame creature appeared and launched a ferocious attack at Tyrant. The monk didn't dodge or evade as he charged forward. All the attacks from the fiery creatures would be crushed by his domineering might. At the same time, those flame creatures were shattered in front of Tyrant. These attacks could not do anything to Tyrant. Up until now, the 5 sky python had not shown any combat strength that Zichun and the rest were afraid of. The rain became even more ferocious. In the low-lying areas, puddles had already turned into ponds. Tyrant finally arrived in front of the 5 sky python. He raised his light shield and a glaring light burst out from his body as he collided with the 5 sky python. The 5 sky python waved its tail and hit Tyrant. There was a dull tremor between heaven and earth. The heavy rain stopped in an instant, and a powerful wave spread out in all directions. It was not that the rain had stopped, but it was separated by the energy wave. In the rumble, Tyrant's body flew out. The light shield on the surface of his body lit up with rays of light, neutralizing the powerful force. Chapter 29:14. It couldn't break the defense, which was what everybody had expected. The light shield was one of the 9 extreme weapons, the most powerful weapons in the Lifestar. Although the defense wasn't broken, the monk was hurt through the shield, which showed how powerful the opponent was. With the long saber in his hand, Zichun stormed forward. Iqian and Li Ai followed him. Zhang Haoyan, the demon ape, Lei Ting, and Xing Chun also stormed forward. Buzz. A ripple appeared in the void. The rain curtain between heaven and earth turned into arrows, filling the entire area. As the power surged, countless arrows circled in the sky like dragons, shooting toward the intruder. Zichun's body was pierced through in just a blink of an eye, torn into pieces by the arrows. It was just a shadow. His real body had reached the 5-headed sky python. The yin and yang light sparkled on his body as he tried his best to draw the saber out of its scabbard. Heaven and earth suddenly brightened up like the sun, shining brightly on the arrows. The saber light carried a powerful aura, slashing toward the 5-headed sky python. Clanging sounds arose. Sparks flew everywhere as the saber light shattered. A flow of powerful recoil went through the saber and fell on Zichun's body. He flew backward in the air. Swoosh! The sky python's tail swept across Zichun's body, shattering another shadow. Zichun had already retreated far away. Die. In the sky, the demon ape transformed. Endless demon light surged on its massive body. The black stick glowed in a blink of an eye. It grew bigger and smashed down with the power of wind and thunder. Boom! Heaven and earth rumbled. Demon chi rolled. The black stick hit one of the five-headed sky python's heads. The part of its head that had been hit shook, and it seemed to be a little dizzy. Its cold eyes rolled back into its head. In the next moment, the demon ape's body flew backward. The low-grade armor on his body shattered inch by inch before exploding and falling to the ground. One strike had broken the armor. Clang, clang, clang. The weapon and the scales continued to collide, creating countless sparks. No one could break the defense of the five-headed sky python scales. The opponent's attack was even more powerful. Lei Ting's and Xing Qin's armors were broken. They coughed out blood while flying backward. The five-headed sky python's supernatural attack wasn't scary. What was scary was its body. It was fast and powerful, which made it hard for people to dodge. Wong. Seeing this, Ziqin's eyes flashed. The 8 saber ancestor steels came out one after another, forming a saber domain that shrouded the area. You guys stay outside. Ziqin's figure flashed and entered the saber domain. The divine avatar appeared. The mid-grade battle armor on his body sparkled, and there was no longer a ranking behind him. Since he had come to this world, the general armor ranking had naturally disappeared. The weapon in his hand was no longer his battle spear, but the stone knife that Ziqin had brought out from the abyss. Within the domain, the five-headed heavenly python seemed to feel threatened. Their cold eyes were filled with unease. It let out a shriek and opened all 5 of its mouths. The power of the 5 elements surged out. Golden swords, meteors, arrows, flames, and wood elemental attacks appeared and rushed towards Ziqin and his doppelganger. The attacks from the divine abilities filled the entire domain. They looked very terrifying, but they were nothing to Ziqin. He stood in the air with an indifferent expression. Those terrifying attacks dissipated when they were several feet away from him. They couldn't get close to him. The power of yin and yang flowed into the saber. The saber began to tremble, as if it couldn't wait to be unsheathed. Ziqin's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He pulled out the saber. The moment he pulled out the saber, the entire domain shook. The 8 saber ancestor steels that stood between heaven and earth released a strong light. 8 saber intents appeared from the saber ancestor steels and fell on the unsheathed saber. The saber, whose aura was already terrifying, became even more powerful at this moment. The saber slashed down. There was a touch of horror in the five-headed heavenly python's eyes. Its body twisted, and the power of the 5 elements lingered on the surface of its body. It wanted to escape. However, it was in the saber domain. Its speed was affected, and the saber light fell faster than the outside world. During this time, there was an ear-piercing sound, like metal rubbing against each other. Puff. Blood splattered and a head rolled down. Although it was a little difficult, it was still decapitated. The 5-headed heavenly python became 4. Outside the domain, everyone's faces were filled with joy when they saw this scene. Ziqin's physical body was obviously not as good as the other parties, but he had the advantage of the yin-yang energy. Coupled with the saber domain, he broke the other party's defense. When Kang Emo saw this, he opened his mouth wide in shock. In his inherited memory, this kind of heavenly python could only be suppressed by people of the same level. He did not expect Ziqin to cut off one of its heads. At this moment, the divine clone moved. He did not use any divine skills. Instead, he held the stone saber and rushed forward. Colorful light lingered on the stone saber, and a powerful aura was released. He used the fleetfoot stride and arrived in front of the other head of the heavenly python. He slashed down. The scales met the stone saber and shattered directly. At the same time, the stone saber continued downward and cut the heavenly python's body. As blood splattered, the heavenly python lost another head. After losing 2 heads, the heavenly python's eyes were full of violence. With a bang, the divine clone flew backward. The flashing armor defense on the surface of his body was directly broken. The rain of swords became denser. They whistled and fell on Ziqin and the divine clone, making clanging sounds. Slash. Zichen's second saber fell. It was still an all-out attack. Wherever the saber light passed, the heavenly python's speed was suppressed. As expected, another head was thrown. The divine clone, who was retreating, steadied himself. The stone saber had always given him a sharp feeling. This time, it did not disappoint him. Swish! His body disappeared, leaving behind a series of afterimages. He arrived at the heavenly python's head. The stone saber lit up with colorful light. The saber slashed down again, overflowing with cold light. Puff! The fourth head was cut off. The divine clone coughed up blood and flew backward. A white mark appeared on his armor. It was slightly dented. The golden rain of swords in the sky disappeared, and so did the meteorites. The heavy rain that had lasted for more than 10 days outside the domain also stopped. Only one of the 5 heads was left. Flames swept across the sky, forming many fire dragons. Zichun rushed forward. His body crashed into the fire dragon, and the fire dragon dissipated. Crack! This time, the heavenly python was faster. Its tail whipped his body, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Zichen's physical body was very strong. It was once known as the perfect physical body. Unexpectedly, after coming here, he was injured in one strike. The divine clone rushed forward. However, it was very strenuous to kill the last head. Crack! Crack! Zichun and the divine clone rushed forward. However, they were sent flying again and again. Even when Zichun used the domain saber light, the other party could still dodge it. It seemed that after turning into one head, the other party was even faster. Zichun wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His expression turned even colder. A whirlpool appeared in the sky above the domain. Laws fell from the whirlpool. These laws came from his world. They were all sealing and could affect the speed. The laws fell and coiled around the heavenly python's body, affecting its speed. Zichun used his full power again. 8 saber intents coiled around the saber. Puff! With this saber, the last head of the 5-headed heavenly python was chopped off. Its body twisted in midair and fell to the ground. Swish! Zichun waved his sleeve. The divine clone and the 5-headed heavenly python disappeared in the domain. Chapter 29:15. Hearing Zichen's words, the others were startled. They looked around but did not find anyone around. In Zichen's line of sight, 2 lights appeared. They were 2 divine generals in armor. Their armors had a strong oppressive aura. They were both middle-grade armors. Sensing that there were people in the dark, Zichun asked everyone to retreat. He joined forces with his avatar to kill the sky python and even used his trump card. In this way, everyone could ensure their own combat strength to deal with the possible dangers. Tyrant and the rest flew over and surrounded Zichun to protect him. In the previous battle, Zichun and his avatar were seriously injured. Don't misunderstand. We mean no harm. Feeling the group's unfriendly eyes, a middle-aged man quickly waved his hand and explained, although we came for the 5-headed sky python, we also know the principle of first come, first served. The 5-headed sky python has been killed by you, so we won't fight for it. My name is Martin, and this is my friend, Link. The group did not let down their guard because of Martin's sincere attitude. The 2 of them dared to come here to kill the 5-headed sky python. Obviously, they were not weak. Maybe they had the 5th stage physique that Kangamo mentioned. Martin looked at Zichun and said with admiration, "Little brother, you're really powerful. You can kill the 5-headed sky python alone. Although it was injured, it's definitely not something that ordinary people can kill." You're saying that the 5-headed heavenly python was injured? Zichun looked at Martin with a stunned expression. The others' expressions also changed. In the previous battle, if it were not for Zichun, it would be very difficult for them to kill the 5-headed sky python, or it would be impossible at all. But they did not expect that such a terrible guy could break the low-grade armor and middle-grade armor with one blow. Unexpectedly, it was still injured. What if it was not injured? Martin nodded and said, "This kind of sky python usually stays in the depths. Only when it's injured will it come out. But little brother is still amazing because even if it's injured, its 5th stage physique is still powerful enough." Zichun said, "We were going to the depths and it happened by accident. We didn't think too much about it." Martin said, You're in luck. We searched for a long time before we found this place. Little brother, I see that your combat strength is not weak. Why don't you join us? Join you? Zichen looked at him in confusion. We are the gods' mercenaries who specialize in hunting level 5 heavenly beasts. If you want to grow quickly, the only way is to constantly hunt down level 5 heavenly beasts and refine heavenly beast pills. As for killing level 5 heavenly beasts, we are professionals, Martin said with a smile. Zichun was very surprised. He didn't know much about this place and didn't know what the so-called mercenaries of God were. He said, I'm sorry, we're new here, so we don't know much about this place. When Martin and Lunk heard this, the smiles on their faces froze. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Martin asked, Little brother, you just call me Zichun? Little brother Zichun, did you just come to this world? Martin looked extremely surprised. Zichun said, Not really. It's been almost a year. When the two heard this, they were even more shocked. Martin said, Then little brother Zichun, have you refined any heavenly beast crystals? Zichun nodded and said, Yes, I have. Then have you felt any bottlenecks? Martin asked again, his eyes fixed on Zichun. Zichun shook his head and said, No, I've been improving. Martin said in shock, Little brother, you're really amazing. It looks like we've underestimated you. What do you mean? We thought that little brother had already reached the level 4 heavenly body, so you could kill level 5 heavenly pythons with the help of weapons. Now it looks like that's not the case. When little brother first came to this world, I'm afraid your body was only at the level 1 or level 2. To be able to kill a level 5 heavenly python at such a level is really shocking. Martin said, Little brother, with your talent, it would be best for you to join our gods' mercenaries. We specialize in hunting level 5 heavenly beasts, and the resources we obtain can be exchanged for other materials and weapons. You've just come here, so you might not know. In this region, there are not many weapon refiners who can decompose level 5 and above heavenly beast materials. After you join us, not only will you be able to exchange for things you want, once we gather enough resources, we can even tailor a set of battle armor to suit your fighting style. Kongamo stood at the side and did not speak, but his expression showed that he was not convinced. Zichun smiled and said, I appreciate Big Brother Martin's good intentions, but we've just come here and are not familiar with this world. Martin said embarrassedly, I was too rash. This is for you. If you want to join us, just send a message. Martin took out a round ball engraved with runes and passed it to Zichun. Looking at the round ball, Kongamo exclaimed, This is a wind message communication pearl. Martin turned back to look at Kongamo and smiled. Little brother, you have good eyesight. Martin and Lunk said goodbye and left. Before they left, they told Zichun the location of the nearest city. After they left, Zichun looked at Kongamo and asked, You know about the gods' mercenaries? Kongamo shook his head, indicating that he had never heard of it. Although Kongamo had lived in this world for thousands of years, his understanding of this world was extremely limited. His knowledge of the grade of his physical body was also limited to his inherited memories. Before he awakened, he knew nothing about anything. After he awakened, he was a beggar and could not come into contact with the outside world. Through this conversation with Martin, Zichun knew that refining heavenly beast crystal stones would bring great benefits to the body and could even help one reach a powerful grade. Although during this period of time, everyone had also been refining, but they still mainly hurried on with their journey, because no one thought that continuously refining heavenly beast crystal stones would bring about great changes to the body. At the same time, after the previous few battles, they were also full of confidence in their own combat strength. They thought that this world was the same as the divine world, where level 9 divine generals were nothing. This time, after encountering the 5-headed heavenly python, their confidence was shattered. It turned out that the divine world's ranking was not much here. It seemed that there was a reason why the ranking General A did not show the ranking after coming here. At the same time, this battle also allowed Zichun to have a sufficient understanding of himself. Reaching level 9 did not mean that one was invincible, and being the first on the ranking general did not mean that one could defeat all of the same level. Reaching level 9 was just crossing the threshold. There was still a lot of space behind the door. In this world, Many divine generals stopped here and did not go deeper. It was not that they were fools, nor that they had given up, but that they knew that their strength was limited. Fortunately, he did not find out too late, and was not so proud that he only realized it after suffering a great loss. Next, the group set off for the nearest city. Along the way, they could easily kill the battle beasts they encountered, but this time, no one was overly proud and disdainful. They had a new understanding of this world. This time, everyone's goal was simple: enter the city, rest, refine, grow. Chapter 29:16. After heading to the nearest city, Zichen found an inn and everyone stayed there. After that, they began to refine the heavenly beast crystals and began to walk another path to level 9. A year passed quickly. During this year, they never left the inn and rarely communicated with each other. They just kept refining the heavenly beast crystals, and their strength increased by a lot. After a year, Zichen and the others left the city. They didn't go any further. The reason for leaving was that there were too many of them, and the cost of staying in the inn was extremely high. After leaving the city, Zichen landed in a hall on a remote mountain peak. Everyone cultivated in the hall while he sat cross-legged on the mountain peak. His spiritual senses covered the surroundings. While refining the heavenly beast crystals, he also stood guard for everyone. Kang Emo displayed his innate divine ability. He was refining armor in Zichen's world, but he didn't have a finished product yet. This was a very difficult and time-consuming task. Compared to a year ago, Zichen had improved a lot, especially in terms of his physical body. This didn't mean that his physical body had increased by many levels, but after refining the heavenly beast crystals, his physical body gradually became familiar with the rules of this world and was recognized by the rules, making his physical body stronger. All of this was due to Zichen's strong physical foundation. After all, it was known as the perfect physical body. In addition to Zichen, the devil ape, Longhu, and the Torvosaurus also improved a lot because they had strong physical bodies. Among the group, Su Mingyao and the other girls didn't have an advantage. Their combat strength wasn't weak, but they didn't have much of an advantage in terms of physical strength. Therefore, after more than a year of refining, their physical body didn't improve that much. This included Monk. He had many wonderful divine abilities, but his physical body was his weakness. Although he had a strong defense and didn't need to be afraid, his attack was his weakness. It could be said that in the divine realm, level 9 divine generals had comprehended divine abilities to the limit and could evolve all kinds of powerful attacks. However, after coming to this world, their physical body became their main goal. In this way, these divine generals had no weaknesses. After a year in this world, Zichen believed that if most of the divine generals here could return, they would definitely be ranked on the general list. Zichen clenched his fists and felt his body brimming with power. With a flash of light, he punched the ground. With a loud bang, a few cracks appeared on the rock. When they first came to this world, Tyrant tried to use the demon-subduing pestle to attack the mountain rocks. In the end, sparks kept bursting out. The sturdy rocks gave them a great shock. After more than a year of refining, Zichen could now easily shatter rocks. This was growth. Zichen looked at the heavenly beast crystal in his hand and sighed. But the consumption is also very high. Over the past year or so, everyone's consumption added up to a very large number. If it were any other divine generals, they would need at least 100 years to accumulate so many heavenly beast crystal stones, or even 1,000 years. Now, Zichen understood why those people wanted to join forces. The more people there were, the faster they would grow. His physical body hadn't reached a bottleneck yet, and was still growing at a steady rate. The heavenly python pellet he obtained last time had always been on him, and he had yet to refine it. According to Kang Emo, this was something that could upgrade the physical body's grade, and it was to be used at a critical moment. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, another year had passed. Zichen was no longer limited to the mountain peak. His spiritual senses spread out, and he would occasionally leave the mountain peak to hunt some heavenly beasts. Everything was as Martin had said. Those who had heavenly beast pellets mostly lived in the depths. Zichen would occasionally go out and hunt some heavenly beasts, but he had never seen a tier 5 heavenly beast. Zichan sat cross-legged on the mountain peak, silently refining the heavenly beast crystal stones. An azure sky-winged eagle was circling in the air, letting out an ear-piercing screech that carried a soul attack. It swooped down from time to time, bringing gusts of wind. This kind of heavenly beast not only hunted other heavenly beasts for food, but also divine generals sometimes. Zichan looked up at the sky, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His figure rose with the wind like a willow catkin, sometimes left and sometimes right, leaving behind a series of afterimages. The azure sky-winged eagle's eyes shone with a cold light as it swooped down towards Zichan. The wind whistled, and a storm appeared around the azure sky-winged eagle. Its sharp claws were like the sharpest weapon in the world, flashing with a cold light. Zichan's figure lightly reached the edge of the storm, and he was swept in by the storm, arriving in front of the azure sky-winged eagle. The azure sky-winged eagle's sharp claws tore through the air, flashing with a metallic luster, leaving a few scratches. In that instant, a powerful force shook, and a blinding golden light burst out from the storm. The golden light was from Zichan's finger. Chi. The golden light flashed, and Zichan's figure appeared. The storm around him dissipated, and the distorted space returned to normal. Zichan stood in front of the azure sky-winged eagle, just an arm's length away from its head. There was a bloody hole on its head, and blood was flowing out from it. The azure sky-winged eagle's aura instantly withered, and its iron wings folded as it fell towards the ground. Swoosh! A golden light shot out from Zichan's body, wrapped around the azure sky-winged eagle, and brought it back, disappearing from Zichan's side. Pong! In Zichan's world, a black shadow landed on the ground, and smoke and dust rose in all directions. It was the azure sky-winged eagle that had just been killed, and in the surroundings, there were many corpses. They were all heavenly beast bones that could be used to refine armor and weapons. They were piled up like mountains. Zichan landed on the mountain peak again. 2 years ago, he still needed the heavenly needle to kill the azure sky-winged eagle, focusing on its vital points. However, 2 years later, he could break through its most solid defense with a single finger. After killing the azure sky-winged eagle, Zichan continued to refine the heavenly beast crystals. After 3 years, Zichan sensed his bottleneck. When he used the heavenly beast crystals again, his strength was restricted. According to the grade, his current strength was equivalent to a 4th grade. This was the level of a perfect body in this world. Next, Zichan took out the 5th grade heavenly python pill and began to refine it. He did not ask the others if they wanted it, and just refined it directly. The team needed an existence with a 5th grade physical body, and he happened to be suitable. Heavenly beast crystals and heavenly python pills were both sources of power for heavenly beasts, but the two were clearly different. The energy contained in the heavenly python pill was purer, more turbulent, and more powerful. The refining speed was also very slow. However, during the refinement process, Zichan's physical strength increased at an extremely fast rate. The previous bottleneck was broken this time. His physical body had reached 5th grade. At this realm, he could easily shatter armor and break through the defense of middle-grade battle armor. After refining a heavenly python pill, Zichan felt that his physical body had undergone a qualitative change. It was completely different from when he first came here. Just as Zichan was feeling his strength, his expression was slightly startled, and he took out a round ball. Chapter 29:17. Zichan had the hyacinth communication bead. According to Kang Emo, it was a kind of 5th grade heavenly beast pill, which was of the same grade as the heavenly python pill that Zichan had obtained before. However, its main function was not to refine, but to communicate with each other after refining. The higher the grade, the further the distance of communication. It was also the only communication object in this place. Zichan was very surprised after learning about the function of this round bead. Obviously, this kind of thing was also very precious. Little brother Zichan. It's me, Martin. Martin's voice came from the hyacinth communication bead. Big brother Martin. What's the matter? Zichan transmitted his voice to the communication bead. We found another 5-headed heavenly python. Little brother, are you interested in forming a team with us? Or is it injured? It should be, Martin said. Little brother, Don't worry. After forming a team, the distribution will be based on contribution. Where are you? Zichen asked. He had already reached 5th grade. It was necessary for him to test his combat strength. However, he had not found a suitable opponent. This place is too remote. Where are you? I'll go find you. I'm in Marlborough City. After the transmission with Martin ended, Zichen transmitted his voice to ask everyone to come out. What happened? Monk walked out of the hall and asked Zichen. The others also looked at Zichen. Zichen told everyone that he was going to kill the 5-headed heavenly python with Martin. We'll go back to the city first. You guys wait for me there. No one had any objections. After seeing the power of the 5-headed heavenly python last time, they had a deeper understanding of this world. However, what surprised them was that Zichen had reached 5th grade so quickly. The group entered the city and found a new inn. The others continued to cultivate. Zichen waited for Martin's arrival in the inn. One day later, Martin came to Marlborough City and met Zichen in the inn. Only the two of us? Seeing that Martin was alone, Zichen asked doubtfully. Martin smiled and said, There are a few others. They went over first. Martin came specifically to find Zichen. This time, the mercenaries of God had something to do outside. Lunk and I were the only ones here. We were worried that it would be dangerous, so we invited 3 more people. Including you, there are 4 of us. After leaving the city, the 2 of them flew east. Aren't they mercenaries? Zichen asked. Not yet. If they are willing, they can join us, Martin said. Zichen asked, Do I need to take a test to join you? Martin shook his head and said, There's no need for a test. As long as we reach the required level, we'll be fine. However, we're just a vassal team. If we want to join the official army, we'll have to undergo some tests. Is the mercenaries of God so big that they are divided into official and vassal? Zichen looked a little confused. The mercenaries of God is the largest mercenary group in this area. What do you think? In addition, we have the support of the Hughes clan, the largest weaponsmithing clan. We have the best equipment in the entire region. Speaking of the God's mercenaries, Martin couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. In addition to the official corps and vassal teams, there are 5 levels in the official corps, from the 5th class to the 9th class. These 5 levels are divided according to the realm of the physical body. Martin smiled and said, Usually, when you join the 5th class official corps, there will be some tests. The tests aren't too difficult. You can pass them easily. Zichen nodded and didn't say anything else. 2 days later, the 2 of them arrived at their destination. Zichen saw Lunk, who was followed by 3 people. The 3 of them looked very young. Youth here meant that they were full of vitality and combat strength. The arrival of Zichen and Martin attracted the attention of the 3 people. At this time, Zichen was also sizing up the 3 people. They were all wearing mid-grade armor. Since they were invited here by Martin, their combat strength was obviously not ordinary. Martin, is this the person you are looking for? A young man among the 3 asked. His name is Zichen. The 2 of them landed. Martin smiled and said, Thoughtless, Zichen's combat strength is extremely strong. The young man named Thoughtless snorted and said, It has nothing to do with me whether he is strong or not. He delayed us for several days. Who will bear the loss? Martin looked at Lunk. Lunk said, Yesterday, we found other people here. They seem to be here for the 5-headed sky python. Martin asked, Where are they now? Lunk said, They have left. I don't know if they found the 5-headed sky python. Martin said, If we go there now, even if they find the 5-headed sky python, they may not have the combat strength to kill it. In this place, 5th class soldiers can't come and go as they please. Zichen, right? I am Roy. At this time, another young immortal general spoke. He looked at Zichen with a kind smile on his face. Zichen smiled and nodded to immortal General Roy. Martin said, Thoughtless, Roy, nah man, you already know Lunk. This time, the 6 of us will form a team. Zichen, my friend. Martin introduced him to the others. Nice to meet you. Nah man said politely. Thoughtless snorted coldly. Zichen, don't mind her. Thoughtless was just worried that the 5-headed sky python would be robbed. After all, it is rare to find a 5-headed sky python in this place, Lunk said with a smile. Zichen nodded and said, We are indeed late this time. Then the 6 of them moved forward and went straight to the 5-headed sky python. The 5-headed sky python was hidden among the mountains. After flying over more than 10 mountains, they saw a sea of fire. In the sea of fire, a 5-headed sky python was partly hidden and partly visible. Seeing that the 5-headed heavenly python was unscathed, everyone heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Everyone's face was filled with joy. Thoughtless' face turned from cloudy to as gentle as a spring breeze. The group landed on the top of the mountain. Martin glanced at the 3 people beside him and said, "Okay, let's do it. I'll go first." Thoughtless' figure flashed, and the middle-grade armor on his body shone. He rushed directly to the 5-headed sky python in the fire. Roy and Naaman followed him, but they didn't get too close. They stopped halfway and didn't attack. Boom! In the endless sea of fire, there was a violent sound. Thoughtless flew out of the sea of fire. The middle-grade armor on his body kept flashing, but it didn't break. The 5-headed sky python hissed and raised its head. Bastard! Thoughtless' eyes flashed coldly, and he rushed forward again. There was a buzzing sound in the void. Large amounts of sword rain shot out, breaking through the air. In the sea of fire, the energy surged again. Thoughtless flew backward again. This time, the armor on his body was broken, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. Seeing this, Martin frowned. Roy and Naaman rushed forward at this time. Weapons appeared in their hands, and they attacked the 5-headed sky python. In the clanging sound, the scales on the 5-headed sky python were broken, and blood flowed out of the wounds. Their combat strength was impressive, but it was difficult to kill the 5-headed sky python, or rather, they couldn't finish the battle quickly. Chapter 29:18. Zichun, Martin, and Lunk flew forward. As they moved forward, a saber appeared in Zichun's hand. He injected the yin and yang energy into the scabbard as he started to accumulate power. The sea of fire separated in front of him. He passed through the sea of fire and disappeared into thin air as the meteorites in the sky smashed down. A few illusory shadows appeared in the sky as he arrived above the 5-headed sky serpents. He unsheathed his long saber after accumulating power. A bright light flashed across the sky as the saber radiance shot out along the tip of the saber, drawing a perfect saber arc and landing on the huge body of the 5-headed sky serpents. Puff! The saber radiance flashed past and shattered the scales. The sky serpents started to bleed profusely. Zichun backed off after the saber slashed down, leaving a blurred shadow where he was standing. The space was distorted as the serpent's tail swept across the place where he had been standing. It was so powerful that an ear-piercing sound was heard in the air, shattering countless shadows. When Lunk and Martin saw this scene, they were shocked. The last time they saw Zichun, he had to use other means to break the sky serpent's defense. However, 3 years had passed, and he could break the sky serpent's defense with a single saber strike. It was evident that he had become more powerful in the past 3 years. The whistling sound continued in the sky as huge rocks smashed down like houses. The flames in the surroundings burned even more fiercely, making the air crackle. Boom! Boom! The sky serpent showed its power. Its tail swept across and knocked everyone away. The defense on Lunk and Martin's body was broken one after another. Among the group, Zichun was the only one who didn't wear armor, so he was more careful. He moved at an extremely fast speed, flashing and disappearing like a ghost. The others kept attacking, but they didn't have the power to kill the sky serpent directly. According to Zichun's observation, this sky serpent was more powerful than the one he had encountered last time. The sky serpent hissed and the sound waves spread out, attacking everyone's souls. Golden light shone in the sky as countless golden long swords flew down and formed a sword serpent in the air, shooting toward the 5 people. Open! Thoughtless looked indifferent. She stepped forward, and divine light gushed out from her body. She slashed down with her blade. Divine light lingered on the blade, and a powerful aura surged, hitting the sword python head-on. The sword python trembled and then exploded, turning into countless swords that shot in all directions. Thoughtless thoughts rushed through the sea of fire and came to the side of the sky serpent. She swiftly chopped down with her blade. Pooh! Blood splashed out again, and the five-headed heavenly python's scales were shattered a little more. Another bloody wound appeared on its body, and blood spurted out. At this moment, the heavenly python looked extremely miserable. There were dozens of wounds of different sizes on its body, and blood was flowing out. However, these wounds were not fatal. Instead, they angered it. Pa! Thoughtless C's body was knocked away by the serpent's tail again. This time, the heavenly serpent rushed towards her after she was knocked away. One of its mouths was open, about to swallow him. A black hole appeared in the mouth of the heavenly boa, and a strange power emerged from it. Some mysterious rules fell on Thoughtless C. Thoughtless Thoughts found that he couldn't move his body. Her face immediately showed a horrified expression. Not good, it's a divine ability. Seeing this, Martin's expression changed. The aura on his body instantly burst out, becoming turbulent and surging. However, he was some distance away from Thoughtless Thoughts, and the heavenly python had used its divine ability, which directly caused the space to be disordered. His speed was affected. Lunk also noticed Martin's situation. His expression became gloomy, and he knew that things were not going well. Na-Man and Luoi wanted to help, but it was too late. Beside the heavenly python, the space was violently distorted, forming storms one after another. They moved forward against the storms. When they got close, Thoughtless Thoughts had been swallowed up. Similar to the situation in the divinity, the heavenly pythons here also knew divine abilities. Their divine abilities were even more horrifying. It was said that the divine abilities came from the bloodline of the outer world. However, it was rare for a fifth-grade heavenly python to display divine abilities. No one expected that the one in front of them could do it. Thoughtless C's body couldn't move. She was terrified. As the black hole approached, the shadow of death shrouded her body and mind. Thoughtless C felt desperate. They couldn't rescue her in time. Just as the others were annoyed, they suddenly saw a beam of light pass through the distorted space. It evaded those horrifying attacks in an irregular line. Like a sailboat in the raging waves, it went against the current and came before the heavenly python. Boom! The heavenly python that was about to swallow Thoughtless C was punched in the head by Zichan. Golden light burst out, illuminating the surroundings. The five-headed heavenly python's head trembled. The boundless black light dispersed from its mouth. The surrounding storms dissipated, and its body flew backward. Zichan looked at the heavenly python that was flying backward and said in a low voice, "Let's end this quickly. Someone is coming." Martin had said that they should end the battle quickly. However, during the battle, Zichan found that everyone was holding back, including himself. When Thoughtless C was in danger, everyone more or less showed some of their true strength. The aura was very powerful. If they worked together, they could definitely kill the fifth-grade heavenly python. At this time, everyone was in shock. When they heard what Zichan said, their expressions changed. They released their divine thoughts, but they didn't feel anything unusual. They didn't even notice that someone was coming. Slash! Luoyi's aura rose to the peak. The divine sword in his hand burst out a dazzling divine light. He slashed down with his sword. Blood splashed, and a python head flew out. After this slash, his face turned pale. Obviously, this slash consumed a lot of energy and cost him something. Na-Man didn't want to be outdone. He slashed diagonally along the original wound, and the second python head flew out. Bang! The python tail swept across and hit his chest. The armor on his body caved in immediately. He flew backward and coughed up blood. Martin and Lunk spread their divine thoughts in all directions. They didn't notice anyone approaching. However, they trusted Zichan very much. At this moment, they both attacked. Two more python heads flew out. Compared to Luo-Yi and Na-Man, the two looked normal. There was only one python head left. Zichan rushed forward. The yin-yang light circled around his body. He was ready to draw out his saber. Get lost. At this moment, an angry roar came from behind. It was Thoughtless C flying forward in the form of a divine light. He attacked from behind with the momentum of being one with the saber. If Zichan hadn't dodged, he would have been affected or hit. A light flashed on his body. He floated away from where he was. Thoughtless Thoughts flew in front of him, and a strong gust of wind with a murderous intent blew his robe, making it flutter in the wind. Poof! Blood splattered. The last head of the sky python was cut off. Its body fell to the ground. When the others saw this scene, their expressions changed slightly. Apparently, Thoughtless Sea had taken advantage of Zichen's attack. Luo Yi and Na Man looked at Martin at the same time. They saw that Martin's face had turned gloomy and ugly. Lunk's face didn't look good either. Sorry, it seems that I took the initiative. But this beast is too infuriating. I can't hold it in anymore. As if sensing the atmosphere, Thoughtless Sea looked back at Zichun and smiled faintly. Good speed. It seems that we're too late. Chapter 29:19. There were more than 10 of them, and all of them were wearing mid-grade armor. Zichun was not surprised. God generals who dared to attack a level 5 heavenly beast did not even have mid-grade armor, then there was no need for them to come. What caught Zichen's attention was the same pattern on their armor. It was on the left side of their chest, and it looked like a red scorpion. Blood scorpion core. Luomu, it's you. Martin looked at the newcomers. His face was already ugly because Thoughtless had attacked first, and now it was even uglier. Lunk flew over. He did not pick up the 5-headed heavenly python's corpse, but stood beside Martin. Although his expression was cold, his eyes were more dignified. The blood scorpion core was second only to the mercenaries of God. Oh, it's Martin. Why? Are you testing the newcomers again? Is the mercenaries of God in need of new recruits because of the great loss last time? The middle-aged man smiled faintly. His expression was indescribably sarcastic. This has nothing to do with you. Martin said coldly, how dare you attack the mercenaries of God? Luomu, are you ready for war? The middle-aged man named Luomu said, war? That's not up to you or me to decide. Now, let's talk about the 5-headed heavenly python. We found it first, but you robbed it. What do you say? Nonsense. We were the ones who discovered it first. Na Man said unhappily, who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like that? Luomu glanced at Na Man with disdain in his eyes. You. Na Man's face showed anger. How dare you find trouble with the mercenaries of God? You're courting death. Luomu smiled faintly. Who's the one courting death? Why don't we try? As soon as Luomu finished speaking, more than a dozen god generals flew over and surrounded them. In the previous battle, they had expended a lot of energy and were more or less injured. Naturally, they were no match for these people. Luomu, what do you want? Martin looked at Luomu and said in a deep voice. Luomu said, I should be the one asking you this, right? You snatched my things, and now you're full of hostility towards me. This doesn't seem right. Martin coldly said, I don't want to play riddles with you. Luomu laughed and said, all right then, return the item to us and apologize. Take out a few hundred heavenly beast crystals as compensation. Luomu, you've gone too far. If Lord Donder knows about this, you should know the consequences. Martin's face darkened. Speaking of Lord Donder, Lamu's expression changed and he said, as long as I kill all of you, won't this matter be resolved? I think no matter how powerful Lord Donder is, he won't find us without any evidence. Everyone's expression changed, and their expressions were full of vigilance. Looking at the number of people, Martin's side did not have a high chance of winning. Thoughtless Sea, who had been silent all this time, said coldly, I'd rather die than be humiliated. Don't even think about apologizing. Luomu glanced at Foss and praised, not bad. You have foresight. I can choose not to humiliate you, but we have to take back what belongs to us. Martin, you should know the style of the blood scorpion core. If there is blood, we will fight to the death. Martin and Lunk looked at each other. They both knew Luomu and knew that he was very powerful. Even if they were not afraid of him, there were other members of the blood scorpion core here. Once a battle broke out, even if they could kill their way out, some of them would die. Considering the overall situation, they obviously could not start a fight. Martin looked at Foss, Roy, and Na Man with a questioning look. Na Man's expression was very serious, but he did not say anything immediately. Roy smiled and said, if you want to fight, then let's fight. If I'm afraid of death, I will stay in the God realm and enjoy my life. Why would I risk my life here? Foss immediately said, That's right. If we were afraid of death, we wouldn't have come. It's just unnecessary sacrifice. It's not bravery, it's recklessness. Martin looked at Zichun. Zichun said, If you want to fight, I don't mind. Shut up. Foss shouted at Zichun with dissatisfaction. If you hadn't delayed us for a few days, we would have killed the sky python and left. Would we be in trouble now? Zichun said indifferently, If it weren't for me, you would have died just now. That's because you came too late. Don't think that I will be grateful to you. If the battle broke out early, it wouldn't have time to use its magic. Foss said coldly. A cold light flashed in Zichun's eyes. Forget it. Let's go. Martin suddenly said. Roy shrugged his shoulders regretfully and said nothing. Na Man exhaled softly. Foss stared at Zichun with extremely cold eyes, as if everything was his fault. Let's go, Lunk said. Zichun naturally had no objection to them leaving. This was a conflict between two core, and he could not intervene. Thanks. Luomu looked at Martin and smiled. Then the others stepped forward and took away the five-headed sky python's body. Zichun followed the team and left. Those from the Blood Scorpion Corps did not follow them. They seemed to be quite trustworthy. After flying for hundreds of miles, Martin motioned for them to stop. Didn't you say that the mercenaries of God were very secretive? How did we get discovered this time? Was it a coincidence? Foss said aloud after they stopped. Lunk said, Didn't someone come 2 days ago? Maybe they found out. Thoughtless Thought said, That's right, but they didn't find the 5 heavenly pythons. What's more, it was too coincidental this time. We had just killed the 5 heavenly pythons and consumed a lot of our energy. Lunk looked at Foss and asked in confusion, What do you mean? There must be a traitor among us. Foss said with certainty, Otherwise, how could it be so coincidental? Moreover, we all consumed a lot of energy. But someone didn't, and he didn't even consume any energy. As soon as she said this, everyone looked at Zichun. Obviously, she was targeting Zichun. Zichun glanced at Thoughtless Sea. He didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled, but his smile was meaningful. What's with your expression? Foss stared coldly at Zichun. Do you have a guilty conscience? Go on. Zichun said, Besides this, is there any other evidence to prove that I'm the traitor? Foss said, No need to prove it. You've admitted it. You're the traitor. Humph. How dare you collude with the Blood Scorpion Corps? You really don't know what's good for you. Lunk frowned when he heard this. Roy smiled and did not say anything. Na Man looked puzzled. Finally, everyone looked at Martin. He was the decision-maker of the team. Martin said, You can go. Foss laughed and said, Even Boss Martin can see it. You. Chapter 29:20. The smile on Thoughtless' face froze. He stared at Martin blankly and said, What? Martin said coldly, You're eliminated. Why me and not him? Thoughtless pointed at Zichun and said loudly, I helped you, and I advised you not to do it. Otherwise, we would suffer a great loss. What about him? Did he do nothing? Why didn't you eliminate him? Martin said coldly, I called Zichun here. He didn't come here to take the test. Thoughtless was stunned and couldn't say a word. Roy and Na Man looked at Zichun curiously. It was interesting that he didn't come here to take the test. What test? Zichun asked in confusion. Martin smiled and said, I'll tell you later. Thoughtless, you can go now. Martin's attitude toward Thoughtless was much colder. You're eliminated. Thoughtless' expression kept changing. Then he said angrily, What a damn test. It's not fair at all. If the mercenaries of God were all like you, I wouldn't go even if you asked me. Bah, I was so blind to want to join the mercenaries of God. Martin didn't get angry at Thoughtless' bad attitude. He continued, You've lost the qualification to join the mercenaries of God forever. You have no chance to take the test. Well, you win. Thoughtless' expression became colder. He reached out his hand to Martin and said, Give it to me. What? Martin was stunned. 1/5 of the Sky Python's materials. You were the one who gave it away, but I was the one who put in the effort. Now, I want to take back my part. Thoughtless said coldly, Since the test doesn't exist anymore, we're in an employer-employee relationship. I'm taking back what I deserve, right? Martin sneered. That's right. But there are 6 of us. He's just a piece of trash who didn't do anything. Thoughtless said coldly, You approve of him, but I don't. I killed the 5-headed sky python last. It's generous of me to only take 1/5 of it. Martin glanced at Luan Ku, who took out 1/5 of the sky python's materials and 1/5 of the sky python's inner core. Thank you for your generosity. Don't let me see you again, or I'll kill you. Take your things and scram. A cold light flashed in Martin's eyes. Humph, this lousy place. Even if you invite me next time, I won't come. Thoughtless Sea snorted and left decisively with the stuff. Before leaving, he glanced at Roy and Numan. You still want to enter such a lousy army? I really don't know what you're thinking. Roy smiled at Firth. Naman didn't say anything. Martin, who had an ugly expression on his face, turned to look at Zichun and said apologetically, Little brother Zichun, I'm sorry for making you suffer. Zichun smiled and asked, What's the test about? Martin said, The 3 of them are going to join the mercenaries of God. Before that, they need to undergo a small test. Killing the 5-headed sky serpent is one of the tests. Zichun said, Since you can decide for them to join the army, they must be of high status. It shouldn't be an affiliated army, right? Martin said, We don't have the ability to decide if they want to join the army. We're only responsible for testing if they're qualified. As for whether they can join the official army, there's still a small test. Besides, we're not in an unofficial army, so our status isn't that high. Zichun said, That's troublesome enough. Martin shrugged and said helplessly, There's no other way. The official army is like this. It's better to have nothing than to have something substandard. If we recruit people like Thoughtless Sea, it'll hurt everyone. Now that the 5-headed sky serpent has been killed, are we going to disperse? Zichun asked. How is that possible? That's just an appetizer. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked you to come. Martin smiled and said, There are still 5-headed sky serpent. Let's go now. There are more? Zichun's eyes lit up. Martin nodded and said, If there are 2 of them together, it'll be difficult for us to deal with them. After discussing it with Lunk, we decided to ask you to come and help. Didn't you say that there are very few 5-headed sky serpents in this area? Zichun asked, puzzled. There's been a series of battles in the depths. Many 5-headed sky serpents were affected and ran outside. Hearing what Martin said, Zichun was very surprised. Even a 5th-grade 5-headed sky serpent was affected and escaped. What kind of battle was it? He suddenly remembered what Luomu said before. He said that the mercenaries of God had suffered a great loss. Was there a connection between the 2? Zichun didn't ask. Martin didn't elaborate either. The 5 of them headed to the place Martin mentioned. It was very far away. As they moved forward, they were also paying attention to their backs, in case someone else came after them again. Zichun was also on guard. He didn't notice anything unusual. Martin took out a map and followed the directions on it. They walked for a few days. Our legion has people in charge of investigating the 5-headed sky serpents. They are all existences with special senses, but their combat power is very weak. They are only responsible for finding information. As they moved forward, Martin said, just like last time. But when we got the information and rushed over, we were one step too late. How do we usually distribute the resources? Hearing what Martin said, Zichun obviously knew that this was not a matter of one person. It involved a lot of people. In the periphery, we get 20% of the information, the Legion gets 10%, and the remaining 70% is divided among everyone. If the Legion goes into the depths, there's almost no need for information. The Legion gets 20%, and the remaining 80% is divided among everyone. This distribution method was reasonable. Although information was very important, in the end, it was still everyone who risked their lives. As for what was given to Thoughtless Sea earlier, it obviously didn't count. Under those circumstances, it was already very rare that Martin didn't kill Thoughtless Sea directly. It took them a full 7 days to reach the place Martin mentioned. The 2 sky serpents were in an even more remote place. It was hard to imagine how the others found them. Moreover, there was nothing unusual here. There was no fire, no rain, and the two sky serpents seemed to be sleeping. Martin looked ahead and said, "Lunk and I will hold one of them. The three of you go deal with the other one." The three of them naturally had no objection. Martin and Lunk flew forward. Zichun and the other two flew to the other one. There was a surge of energy. The sky serpents were awakened. A great battle soon broke out. Zichun flew forward. The light of yin and yang flashed on his body, releasing a powerful energy. To avoid unnecessary trouble, let's end this quickly. He unsheathed his long saber. The light of yin and yang flashed. Blood splashed. He beheaded one of the sky serpents. Such a clean attack made Na Man's expression change. Next to him, Roy smiled. He used the fleet-foot step and went to the other side. Puff. Blood flashed again. Another sky serpent was beheaded. Na Man gritted his teeth. Not to be outdone, he beheaded the third sky serpent. Chapter 29-21. This was a deep valley with two sky pythons in it. Flames and meteorites roared in the valley. The surrounding space was distorted as various powerful attacks appeared. Zichun and the other two had successfully killed 3 sky pythons. Their attacks were powerful. Martin and Lunk, who were fighting the other sky python in the distance, were very satisfied. Obviously, the 3 of them were not weak. However, they had to pay a price for it. After the attack, Na Man retreated. His face was extremely pale as if he had used up all his strength in the previous attack. Luo Yi's situation was slightly better, but her speed was affected. In comparison, Zichun did not seem to have used up any energy. His expression was still cold. Bang! The sky python was in pain. Its tail swept across as fast as lightning. Zichun's speed was even faster. He left behind an afterimage and flashed above the sky python. He raised his hand and slashed down. Puff! The 4th sky python was killed. Na Man, who was retreating, was shocked when he saw this scene. He did not expect Zichun's combat power to be so strong. He had already killed 2 sky pythons so easily. He had used up a lot of energy after that attack. If he did not retreat, he would be seriously injured. Does he have a 6th grade body? Na Man thought in shock. Then, he heard a hiss. The last sky python was also killed by Zichun. Without its head, the sky python died. Its corpse fell to the ground. Luo Yi looked at the dead sky python and praised with a smile. Amazing. Zichun nodded in response. He had a good impression of Luo Yi. Then, he flashed and flew in another direction. Martin and Lunk were surprised that the battle ended so easily. At the same time, they became more confident. With Zichun's participation, the 2 of them went all out. Although the 2 of them were not from the official army, they were extraordinary since they were able to assess the recruits for the official army. After the 2 of them went all out, they could join forces to deal with a 5-headed sky python. Blood splattered. 5 sky pythons died. Zichun killed one while the other 4 were killed by the 2 of them. The battle ended easily. Martin laughed and said, "Zichun, thank goodness you came. Otherwise, we would have been injured, and it wouldn't have been so easy." 2 heavenly pythons. Zichun had killed 4 of them by himself. His aura was not weak or chaotic at all. How amazing was that? At this moment, an even more hearty laugh rang out. Fate, it's really fate. Someone was approaching from the horizon. Martin turned to look at the horizon, his face immediately turning gloomy. Luo Mu actually came again, and this time, he brought a few more people with him. Lunk's face was also very gloomy. He couldn't understand how these guys followed them. At this moment, they saw another familiar face in the group. It was Thoughtless, who had been disqualified a few days ago. He was now in the Blood Scorpion Corps. There was also a Blood Scorpion symbol on his chest. It was obvious that he had joined the Blood Scorpion Corps. "Martin, we meet again." Thoughtless looked at Martin with an extremely cold expression. "It's you," Martin said coldly. "What?" Fusi came forward. "You dare to do it, but don't dare to admit it? The mercenaries of God have always been secretive. How could their tracks be discovered? You were the one who informed Luo Mu. To be honest, you're the spy." Martin's eyes flashed coldly. "This is called intelligence, not spying. Do you understand intelligence?" Thoughtless smiled coldly. The group had already arrived. Zichun was not too surprised by the arrival of these people. Instead, he heaved a sigh of relief. Luomu and the others had snatched the 5 heavenly pythons, so it didn't matter. It was Thoughtless who was so annoying. He had targeted Zichun several times, which had completely infuriated him. Therefore, this person had to die. Luomu came forward and laughed. Look, you've snatched our things again. What do you think we should do? The others heard him and laughed. Martin had encountered the same choice a few days ago. Now that they had more people, the answer was obvious. Brother, I think they don't want to do it this time. Why don't we kill them all together? Thoughtless smiled coldly. She glanced at the group and finally fixed her eyes on Zichun. I think this guy wants to die. Look, he looks like he wants to die. Then Thoughtless looked at Martin and said, and him, when I left last time, I only asked for 1/5 of the resources out of kindness. But he didn't appreciate it. He even threatened to tell me to get lost, and that he would kill me the next time he saw me. How could that happen? Luomu raised his eyebrows and said unhappily to Martin, Martin, you're disrespecting your brother by doing this? Martin's face was very gloomy. He didn't care when his things were snatched, because he had expected that something was wrong with Thoughtless. But now she was here again. Obviously, something was wrong. Luomu extended 2 fingers and said, you have 2 choices. First, we take what belongs to us. Then, you apologize to my brother and give him some resources as compensation. Second, we fight a bloody battle. After killing you, we take the things and leave. Luomu, you've gone too far. Na Man said coldly from behind. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me? Believe it or not, you'll be the first to die. Luomu narrowed his eyes, which were as sharp as knives. Luoi shook his head and said, boring. This is too boring. Zichun, what do you think? It's very boring. As soon as Zichun finished speaking, he descended to the ground. What are you doing? Seeing Zichun move, Thoughtless shouted. Of course, I'm going to get the spoils. What else can I do? Zichun said lightly. It's our things. We don't need your help. Thoughtless he shouted coldly, but Zichun didn't pay any attention to him. He descended, and rays of light flashed, bringing back the body and the head of the python. Trash, I said don't move. Thoughtless shouted again and rushed towards Zichun. His eyes were full of murderous intent and surging divine light. Zichun's body shone brightly and released a powerful aura. Bang! Thoughtless, who was rushing forward, flew backward. The defense on the surface of his body was constantly distorted and was almost broken. Such a scene made the other people's faces change. Thoughtless' combat strength was naturally very strong since he could participate in the assessment. However, he was sent flying by Zichun in an instant. Was he a 5-headed heavenly python? Thoughtless' face was full of fear. The blow just now was no weaker than the 5-headed heavenly python's attack. Luomu raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, I didn't expect there to be an existence comparable to a 5th-class heavenly python in your team. But unfortunately, we're all python slayers, and we're professional python slayers. Martin and Lunk looked at each other calmly. They had seen Zichun's powerful combat strength 3 years ago. Now that 3 years had passed, Zichun's combat strength was much stronger. Now that he had taken action, he was naturally confident. Chapter 29-22. Thoughtless was frightened by Zichun's power. But obviously, he had more people on his side. No matter how strong Zichun was, it was impossible for him to beat them all. Zichun, how dare you steal from the Blood Scorpion Legion? You're courting death. Thoughtless stood beside Luomu, his eyes flashing fiercely. Zichun glanced at him and said indifferently, you don't have much time left. Say what you want to say. Thoughtless was stunned, but he said nothing. His expression kept changing. How dare you threaten my people in front of me? You're interesting. Luomu laughed, and there was an undisguised killing intent in his smile. Zichun, you're too reckless. You'll get us killed. Apologize quickly. Just then, a voice came from behind. It was Na Man. Zichun looked back at Na Man with a meaningful smile on his face. Even if I do, I'll get them killed. What does it have to do with you? What do you mean by that? Na Man was startled. Zichen said indifferently, "Don't you know how they got here?" Na Man's face darkened. "Zichen, make it clear. What does it have to do with me? Do you mean I led them here?" "Nonsense. I can say you led them here. I'm not the only one here," Na Man said excitedly. Next to him, Luoi said, "Are you going to fight or not? It's getting more and more boring. Who are these people?" "Fight." Zichen just said one word and then chanted. The surrounding void began to distort. 8 Saber Ancestors tablets broke through the void and formed a Saber domain. At this moment, everyone was in the domain. "This is it." Seeing this scene, Martin and Lunk both had excited expressions on their faces. 3 years ago, Zichun used this trick to kill the 5-headed sky serpent by himself. Feeling the oppressive aura from the domain, Luomu and the others' faces changed. He wasn't afraid of these people, not even Zichun. However, Zichen appeared to be too calm at this moment, which made him feel uneasy. Thus, he shouted, "Martin, are you sure you want to fight the Blood Scorpion Legion?" Zichen said indifferently, "What does this have to do with Brother Martin? You want to steal my things, so isn't it right and proper for me to kill you?" Shameless boasting. Based on. Before Luo Mu could finish, he felt a gust of wind blow at him. It was a light breeze at first, but then the wind grew stronger and turned into a storm. Before he could even see Zichen, he felt a force hit his chest, as if he had been hit by a moving mountain. With a loud bang, a powerful fluctuation spread out in all directions. Thoughtless, who was standing beside Luo Mu, felt her vision blur for a moment before her body flew out uncontrollably. He was sent flying by the energy and was not Zichen's target. Zichen's target was Luo Mu. Luo Mu was sent flying by his punch. As he flew back, the defense on his body distorted and shattered. Zichun stood where Luo Mu had been. The people around him had all been sent flying by the energy shockwaves and scattered in various parts of the domain. The surroundings became quiet. No one spoke. Everyone widened their eyes and stared at Zichun in shock. That scene just now gave everyone the misconception that a 5-headed heavenly python had made a move. After a short moment of silence, Luo Mu stared at Zichun in shock. "You. Who are you?" Zichun walked forward. "Who I am is not important. What's important is that you want to steal my things, so I have to kill you." With that, he charged forward. Another gust of wind blew past. The light breeze became a strong wind, and the strong wind became a storm. The storm engulfed Luo Mu. Scram! In the storm, Luo Mu roared. Divine light lingered around his body, and a divine sword appeared in his hand. The blade was sharp, and a powerful aura emanated from it. The sound of weapons colliding rang out. It was very urgent, like fine raindrops. The sounds of fighting suddenly stopped. The sweeping storm disappeared, and Zichen stood indifferently. Luo Mu's body froze, and he held his sword in front of him. The sword reflected his face and illuminated his eyes. They were a pair of eyes that were filled with terror. The next moment, a line of blood flowed from his neck. His head was separated from his body, and divine blood splattered in the domain. Luo Mu was dead. As the strongest person in the team, Luo Mu had died just like that. It had only been a few breaths of time. Roy looked at Zichen in front of him, and a smile appeared on his face. As expected, he's getting stronger and stronger. Martin and Lunk were very shocked. Luo Mu's strength was similar to theirs, and they did not expect him to be killed just like that. Thoughtless was so frightened that he could not say a word. He did not expect Zichen to be so strong. Zichen's gaze swept around. The others were also terrified. Run! The next moment, this thought appeared in their minds, and they decided to run away. Even if a 5-headed sky python was standing here, they would not be so weak. But the opponent was obviously much stronger than the 5-headed sky python. When they encountered the barrier, their bodies came into contact with the barrier, and they were strongly repelled. This domain is not used to kill people, because you are not worthy of it. Zichen's cold voice rang out. His figure flashed, and he disappeared from where he stood. With a boom, another punch broke through the armor. Then, with a flash of brilliance, another person died. Boom! Powerful energy began to surge. The other members of the Blood Scorpion Corps were like crazy, constantly attacking the barrier. The 8 saber ancestor steels floated in the void, and these attacks could not shake them at all. Zichen's body flashed with the light of yin and yang. His figure flickered, and in a flash, he appeared in front of a person. Then, the golden light flashed again. It was Zichen's fist. One punch broke through the armor. These people were wearing mid-grade armor, but in front of Zichen, this armor could only block one attack for them. After the armor was broken, death shrouded them. "Kill him!" Someone roared and rushed forward. His divine aura burst out to the limit. But it was useless. In the flash of energy, the person who rushed forward flew out. The next moment, the golden light flashed and blood splattered. After several people were killed in succession, the rest of the people looked at each other with confused expressions. "Don't kill me! Don't kill me!" Someone shouted loudly and kept begging for mercy. Zichen's eyes were full of indifference, and he rushed past. At this moment, Martin and the others were full of shock. At this moment, Zichen was more terrifying than a 5th-class heavenly beast. He was only a 5th-class heavenly beast, the same level as them. How could he be so powerful? Na-Man stood there, his face extremely pale, and his body was trembling. Recalling what Zichen had said before, fear began to spread from the corners of his eyes. In the distance, Thoughtless Thoughts was even worse. He wanted to escape, but he could not break through the barrier. He was frightened and screamed in horror. Boom! Zichen was like the god of death. Wherever he went, the divine generals would be killed. He was not wearing armor, but he killed those who were wearing armor. So far, no one's attack could land on him. The surroundings suddenly became quiet. There were not many people standing in the field, and there were many corpses on the ground. Chapter 29-23. It became quiet all of a sudden. Thoughtless C, who was still attacking the barrier, suddenly trembled and turned around slowly. He knew why he hadn't died yet. Zichen wanted him to feel fear. He wanted him to suffer mental torture. Now that everyone was dead, it was his turn. His face was full of terror. He turned around and saw Zichen walking toward him. "Zichen, don't kill me. I was wrong," Thoughtless said in a trembling voice. She was so frightened that her voice trembled. Zichen looked at him without saying a word. He didn't stop walking. He didn't walk fast, but every step seemed to be stepping on Thoughtless C's heart. He felt that his heart would explode at any time. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have targeted you. Give me a chance. I'll change." Thoughtless C looked at Zichen with hope. His face was full of pleading. Zichen looked at Thoughtless C and said indifferently, "People like you shouldn't live in this world." This sentence had sentenced Thoughtless C's fate. With a booming sound, Thoughtless C's body flew backward and smashed into the barrier. The barrier rippled, and the armor on Thoughtless C's body was twisted and broken. "Don't kill me. Don't kill me." Thoughtless C screamed in terror. I know the secret of the blood scorpion core. They found a relic. Let me go, and I'll tell you where it is." "Relic?" Zichen frowned. It was a familiar word, but also a strange word. It was familiar because he had seen many relic sites. It was strange because he couldn't believe there were relic sites in this world. "Are you serious?" Martin flew forward and stared at Thoughtless C with a serious expression. "It's absolutely true. If I lie, I'll be struck by lightning." Thoughtless C said in terror, "Let me go, and I'll take you there." Martin looked at Zichen with a serious expression. Apparently, this was a serious matter. Zichen turned around and stared at Na-Man with cold light in his eyes. He released a murderous intent. Na-Man's face instantly turned pale. He said without hesitation, "I know that place too." Hearing that, Thoughtless' face was filled with despair. He yelled hysterically at Na-Man, "Na-Man, you damn!" A golden light flashed across Thoughtless C's neck. Blood gushed out, and Thoughtless' head left her body. Martin was stunned, and turned to look at Na-Man. Martin was furious that Luomu and the others were able to chase after him. He did not expect that Numun was the problem. But how did Zichen find out about this, even though he had done a thorough investigation? Along the way, I heard them talk about this matter. It is said that it is an extremely small historical site. The upper echelons of the Blood Scorpion Corps do not attach much importance to it, but these people are very excited. They plan to snatch you guys before going there. Of course, they do not exclude the possibility of killing you. Shadowless's voice sounded beside Zichun. Previously, when Martin let Thoughtless leave, Zichun asked Shadowless to follow her. He did not intend to let Thoughtless go. Shadowless had overheard their conversation and naturally knew who was informing them. Zichun turned around and stared at Na Man. I will take you to the historical site. I promise that I will not play any tricks. As he spoke, Na Man immediately took out the hyacinth communication bead from his divine ring. His body glowed and the bead shattered. I can no longer communicate. I promise that I will cooperate fully. He promised solemnly, but his heart was filled with fear. Regardless of whether Zichun had proof or not, Na Man did not intend to continue, because he would die if he did. With Zichun's combat ability, killing him was too easy. Therefore, when Zichun looked at him, he already knew what to do, because only one of them could live. Relatively speaking, he had never angered Zichun, so he had a higher chance of survival. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had to cooperate. He seized this opportunity, and so, Thoughtless died. In order to show his stance, he even destroyed the hyacinth communication bead. This would better show his stance. No matter what, he had to save his life. Zichun retracted his gaze from Na Man and looked at Martin and Lunk. Their expressions were extremely awkward. There were only 3 people in the trial this time, and 2 of them were from the Blood Scorpion Legion. We were too impatient and did not investigate carefully. Martin smiled bitterly. However, his words clearly proved that the mercenaries of God were seriously lacking in manpower. Perhaps they had really suffered heavy losses in the depths and urgently needed new blood. Zichun looked at Luoyi, who smiled at him and said, "Why? Are you going to attack me? That would be interesting." Zichun smiled and said, "It is indeed interesting. Before we talk about the historical site, shouldn't we divide the spoils?" The spoils that Zichun was talking about were naturally the 2 5-headed sky pythons. As for the people he killed, the spoils he obtained belonged to him. Of course, he would not distribute them. Take them all. If it weren't for you, we would have been finished. Luonku sighed. Luo-yi did not object. Na Man did not dare to object. Zichun shook his head and said, "That is that. Didn't you ask me to come here to help? It is my duty to help. Even if you don't want it, the Legion has to take it. Don't the people who provided the information have to take it too?" After a round of modesty, Zichun received 1 5-headed sky python and gave the other to Lunk. As for how he would distribute it, it was not up to Zichun. Let's talk about the historical site. It seems to be very important. After the resources were distributed, Zichun talked about the historical site. Martin said, "It's not just important. It's extremely important. All the historical sites in this area are prehistoric." Prehistoric? Zichun was stunned when he heard this. It is said that the historical site was left behind when the creatures from another dimension invaded. At that time, the gods fought against the creatures from another dimension, and many of their legacies were lost in the war. It was through these historical sites that many of the gods' legacies were rediscovered, Martin said. It is said that even the gods obtained the historical site here and benefited greatly. This is obviously hearsay. He can't be completely sure. The first invasion of the creatures from another dimension was very long ago. So long ago that it was impossible to verify. To be honest, in our era, it was the first large-scale battle with the creatures from another dimension. At that time, there were no gods, and it was impossible for there to be any legacies of the gods. Shadowless said aloud. In terms of age, Shadowless was the oldest. The first generation of Defiant of the Heavens had existed for too long, even before the 9 great gods of the god realm. At that time, the Primal Chaos clan was the strongest. They mastered many mysterious techniques. It is said that they were derived from the Great Tao and were very powerful. Chapter 29-24. Zichun already knew what happened next. After the war, Shadowless somehow did not die. When he woke up, the world had changed. The chaotic race had disappeared, and the divine race had risen. It was said that they were the primal chaos clan of the past, but they had more people now, and they had a new cultivation method, which made them stronger than before. At least, before the Great War, whether it was the Life Stars or the Chaotic Clan, there was no existence at the level of Heavenly God. Martin did not know about Shadowless's existence. He said excitedly, "If the prehistoric site is real, we might be able to get the prehistoric combat skills." That's amazing. Not only us, but also the heavenly beasts want the prehistoric site. They even fought a war for it. The heavenly beasts want the site too? Zichun was very confused. Martin said, "Not all the sites are inheritances. Most of them are not inheritances, but something. But as something passed down from ancient times, there must be rules imprinted on it. Once you comprehend it, you can understand its essence. It's the same for the divine generals and the heavenly beasts. The heavenly beasts have more advantages than us." Zichun nodded. He did not expect the site to be like this. "This is too important. I have to inform the army," Martin said. "Zichun, don't worry. Usually, the site can be comprehended many times. If there are other prehistoric weapons, we won't take them. Except for the comprehension, everything there is for you." At this moment, Zichun was also thinking about whether he should go back and call Tyrant and the rest. However, just as this thought appeared, he immediately dispelled it. He did not know whether the road ahead was dangerous or not. If he rashly brought people over, it would not be good if he put everyone in danger. He looked at Naaman. Naaman said, "From the information I got, the site is not big. Some people from the Blood Scorpion army have already gone there. If we don't go now, we might not be able to catch up." This time, Luo Mu's idea was simple. He wanted to rob Martin, and then Fu Si and Naaman could successfully infiltrate the army and get all kinds of information. But something happened in the middle, which made them change their plan. But they did not expect that everything would be ruined by Zichun. After hearing what Naaman said, Martin gave up on the idea of informing the army. Everyone followed Naaman to the ruins. Shadowless had said so before, so Zichun wasn't worried. As they continued to move forward, Zichun released his spiritual senses and probed the surroundings. During this time, Martin explained some information about the ruins in this world to Zichun. Although he had never seen the real ruins with his own eyes, he had heard about it from others in the army. 3 days later, they entered a mountain range. The mountain peaks were tall and majestic, but they were still bare, without any vegetation. This world was desolate, and there was very little greenery. It seemed to indicate that there was very little life in this world. As they continued forward, the further they walked, the more desolate it became. This made Zichun very suspicious. How exactly did those people discover the ruins? Some ruins may suddenly appear due to changes in the terrain. In some cases, due to the passage of time, the power of the rules has loosened, resulting in a temporary appearance. Martin said, "In this world, there are many people who specialize in traveling in remote areas in search of ruins." "Like the intelligence personnel in your army?" Zichun asked. "More or less. But they're a special kind of existence. They're specially provided for by the army. Also, after discovering the ruins, they won't get extra shares, only corresponding rewards. Ruins were not like those sky pythons that would be discovered every once in a while. Sometimes, one would not be discovered for hundreds of years. Sometimes, one would not be discovered for thousands of years. During this long period of time, they needed the army to provide for them. After entering this mountain range, the group walked for a few more days. On the way, Naaman was silent and did not show any abnormalities. "We're almost there, right?" Zichun, who was walking at the front, suddenly asked. Naaman was startled. He said, "How do you know?" "There's someone up ahead." Zichun's spiritual senses could spread far and wide, and he was able to detect places that others could not. "Oh?" Naaman's eyes flashed with surprise. He said, "If that's the case, let's be careful." Zichun said, "Yes, we have to be careful. There are many of them, and they're trying to break the seal." The group continued to move forward, but their speed was slower. With Zichun's guidance, they did not have to worry about exposing their whereabouts. Outside a canyon, a group of divine generals stood. They were all wearing armor, and their bodies were surging with a strong aura. There were many dried bloodstains on the ground around the canyon. The heavenly beasts that had surrounded this place had all been killed. The leader was a middle-aged man. He was not wearing armor. Among the people shining with divine light, he looked very different. However, when the people behind him looked at him, not only did they not mock him, but they were also full of respect. This man was the leader of the group. He had a 6th-grade physical body and was quite famous in the Blood Scorpion Corps. Although the ruins this time were not very big, they could not afford to lose. Therefore, they sent a 6th-grade physical body to guard the place. In front of him, there were more than 10 people. They surrounded the canyon and kept forming seals. The power of rules appeared and fell in front of them, causing the space to distort. "Sir, except for Luomu, everyone is here." A person walked out from behind and said respectfully, "There's no response to the message. Do you want to send someone to take a look?" The 6th-grade physical body in front of him said indifferently, "No need. Send someone to guard the surroundings." Yes. The sir looked in front of him. The space there was constantly distorting, and there was an ancient aura faintly permeating from it. "It's not a big ruin. If we can get a remnant, it'll be considered a gain," the 6th-grade physical body said indifferently. At this moment, the divine formation masters exerted their strength together. The space in front of them distorted even more violently and finally exploded. The rules were shattered. The canyon was no longer in front of them, but a wide plain. Obviously, this was an overlapping space. At this moment, they had opened another passage. "Let's go." After the space stabilized, the existence of the 6th-grade physical body waved his hand and flew forward. The people behind him followed into the passage. Finally, the divine formation masters and the people who were on guard in the distance all entered. The scene in the depths had been perceived by Zi-Chan with his spiritual thoughts. After checking that the last person had entered, he signaled the others to speed up. Like streaks of lightning cutting across the sky, the group of 5 flew forward. Soon, they saw the canyon and the desolate plain in the middle of the canyon. Whoosh! Chapter 29-25. After entering the overlapping space from the canyon, a desolate plain appeared in front of them. An ancient and desolate aura assaulted their senses. It really is a prehistoric sight. Feeling this aura, Martin exclaimed in surprise, his expression becoming excited. This was the first time he saw a prehistoric sight since coming to this world. Although he had seen it a few times in the army over the years, he missed it for some reason. Every time he thought about it, he felt regret. This time, he finally had the chance to visit the site in person. Zi-Chan extended his spiritual senses and checked the plain. After a while, he frowned and said, "This place seems to have been opened before." What? When they heard this, their expressions changed. If this place had been opened before, it obviously meant that the thing had been taken away. In other words, this site was empty and there was no more opportunity. They became depressed. They also saw the traces of a great battle. Although the blood had dried up, they could tell that it was not left behind by prehistoric times. Perhaps many years ago, this place had been opened by someone and a great battle had even broken out. If it had been opened before, this place should have been abandoned. Why would the rules cover this place again? Lunk asked in confusion. In this world, many sites would be discovered, but they would be abandoned forever after being opened and would not be hidden again. Because the thing that could cause the rules to change had disappeared, the rules of the space would naturally disappear and integrate into this world. Could it be that there is still something here that has not been taken away? And it is the most important thing? When they thought of this possibility, they became excited again. Only a powerful thing could cause the rules of space to distort and overlap with a certain space, leaving behind a prehistoric site. Now that there were traces of a great battle here, it meant that this place had been opened before. However, the rules did not disappear. Did this mean that the thing that caused the space to be hidden was still here? Zi-Chan released his spiritual senses. He did not find the people from before, but he found a space barrier. Let's go. The group flew toward the space barrier, their speed getting faster and faster. Soon, they arrived at the space barrier. Ripples surged as they entered the center. This place was still empty, and there was nothing else. The traces of a great battle became more obvious. There were huge claw marks on the ground, and even some scales that had exhausted their spiritual power. "It looks like a battle between heavenly beasts," Martin said in a deep voice as he looked at the ancient traces around him. The others nodded in agreement. Judging from the battlefield, that was indeed the case. "There are some heavenly beasts that are able to discover overlapping dimensions and enter them to gain insights into the prehistoric ruins," Martin said. "It seems that they were the ones who found this place first, but they probably didn't get that important thing." At this moment, everyone was increasingly certain that there would be a great harvest here. In the chaotic plains, an ancient and desolate aura surged in all directions. Everyone continued to move forward. During this time, Na-Man remained silent. Now that he was no longer needed to lead the way, he couldn't help but feel worried. He went deeper and deeper, and in the meantime, he had gone deeper into several levels. Shwa. When they entered the first level again, what entered everyone's eyes was a boundless amount of dazzling divine light and a tyrannical aura. Seeing the dazzling divine light, Na-Man's eyes flashed with surprise. The divine light enveloped the five of them. When Martin and the others saw their surroundings, their faces turned ugly. They were surrounded by dozens of people, and in front of them stood a divine general without armor. Seeing the divine general, Martin's face changed drastically. He exclaimed, "Yuri's." Lunk obviously knew this person, and his face turned ugly. The divine general with a 6th-stage physical body was very famous in the Blood Scorpion Corps. He was already a team leader. "Is he very strong?" Roy asked. "A 6th-stage physical body. Do you think he's strong?" Martin said bitterly. "Oh." Roy replied with an "oh," and his expression was calm. "You killed Luomu?" Yuri's looked at Zichun and asked coldly. "That's right." Zichun nodded and glanced at Na-Man. Na-Man's figure flashed and flew forward. He stood with the others and stared indifferently at Zichun and the others. "You all treat me like an idiot, but you don't know that in my eyes, you are the real idiots." Na-Man sneered. "Now, it's time to catch a turtle in a jar." Zichun looked at Na-Man and smiled faintly. For some reason, this smile made Na-Man feel infinite fear. "Since you've admitted it, then you—" Before Yuri's could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Roy. "I say, the opportunity here should be on the last level, right? Didn't you surround us here to fight? Why don't we start now?" "Arrogant." Yuri's eyes flashed coldly. Roy smiled and said, "Whether I'm arrogant or not, you'll know when you try." With that, divine light surged on his body, and he flew to the side. "Zichun, I'll leave the 6th stage to you." Roy, who was moving forward, divine light lingered on his body. He arrived in front of a divine general wearing mid-grade armor. A long spear appeared in his hand, and he struck forward with it. With a boom, divine light sputtered, and the divine general in front was sent flying by the spear. As he flew backward, the defensive light on his body distorted and then exploded, breaking the defense with one strike. Whoosh! Roy did not slow down. His spear fell and pierced the divine general's throat. Blood splattered, and the divine general fell to the ground, dead. 2 strikes had killed a 5th-stage divine general. When Martin and Lunk saw this scene, they were completely stunned. They did not expect Roy to have such powerful combat strength. Na-Man was also shocked. Roy usually did not reveal his strength, so he did not expect him to be so terrifying. "You're courting death." Yuri's eyes flashed coldly as he flew forward. A golden light flashed and blocked in front of him. "Your opponent is me." Zichun looked at Yuri's and said, "Coincidentally, I also want to end the battle here. Go to hell." Yuri's body flashed with divine light. The power of a 6th-stage body was activated, and he punched at Zichun. Boundless divine light flashed, and a terrifying pressure appeared between heaven and earth. The punch was aimed at Zichun. Humph! Zichun snorted coldly when he felt the powerful force contained in this punch. He also clenched his fist and attacked. On the surface of his fist, the light of yin and yang circulated. Although he had a 5th-stage body, he was not afraid of a 6th-stage body because he had powerful yin and yang energy. The grade of the body was important, But the energy of a ninth-stage body could not be ignored. Both had fifth-stage bodies, but the difference in combat strength between an ordinary ninth-stage body and a ninth-stage body on the roll of generals was huge. Boom! The two fists collided. The world shook, and a powerful shockwave spread out. Under this shockwave, the divine generals in the distance retreated in fear. The energy surged, wreaking havoc. Zichun stood where he was. Chapter 29-26. Seeing Yuri's flying backward, the faces of the surrounding god generals were filled with shock. The two of them were clearly one grade apart, but the outcome was like this. Swish! The retreating Yuri's disappeared, and the divine light before Zichun's eyes shone brightly. A fist broke through the divine light and went straight for Yuri's face. The wind whistled, and Zichun's robe flapped against his body. He was drowned in the divine light. Boom! A huge tremor. The divine light raged wildly, and the fist containing yin and yang energy tore through the divine light with a vast momentum. The divine light on Yuri's body shattered, and his body flew backward again. His face was somewhat pale and extremely unsightly. His robe trembled slightly, and Zichun rushed forward. The power of yin and yang surrounded his body, and the dazzling fist light filled the world. Boom! 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 The two of them fought, and powerful energy raged in the air. The space was constantly distorted, and it could be torn apart at any time. The surrounding fifth-grade god generals retreated into the distance, fear on their faces. They did not even dare to get close to such a battle, let alone participate. Naaman was the first to retreat. Although he had shattered his communication bead in front of everyone, he had already sent out a message before that. He had been extremely silent and cooperative along the way because he believed that he could get out of danger after coming here. Zichun's previous glance showed that he already knew about this matter, but he was not afraid because Lord Yuri's was overseeing it, and Lord Yuri's had a sixth-grade body. But he did not expect that even a powerhouse like Lord Yuri's could not suppress Zichun. In addition, Roy's outburst was also beyond his expectations. In the previous battle, Roy's combat strength was not much stronger than his. He did not expect him to hide his strength, and when he truly unleashed his full power, he could slaughter those of the same level. After unleashing his full power, Roy's combat strength was not weaker than Zichun's. He could break the enemy's defense with one strike and kill with the second strike. They were both fifth-grade god generals, but they could not withstand a single blow from him. Roars sounded everywhere, and divine fluctuations surged in all directions. 5 of the same level had already died in Roy's hands. Martin and Lunk were on guard. The two of them had not made a move yet, and those people had not made a move against them. They were all surrounding Roy. At that moment, their faces were filled with astonishment. Zichun's combat strength was already beyond his expectations, but he didn't expect Roy to be so strong as well. While they were shocked, the two of them were also pleasantly surprised. If both of them could join the army, the divine mercenaries would welcome 2 capable generals. The two of them looked ahead and saw the battle between Zichun and Ulysse. Yuri's was very famous in the Blood Scorpion Legion. He was the leader of a troop and had a real rank 6 physical body. Such a powerful existence couldn't gain the slightest advantage in front of Zichun. Energy rumbled as divine light sputtered in all directions. Yuri's was once again sent flying backward. There were several tears on his robe, his hair was disheveled, and blood was flowing out from the corner of his mouth. He looked very miserable. His eyes were very sharp as they fell on Zichun. He said, "You're very good, very good." Zichun looked at Yuri's with a solemn expression. He seemed to have the upper hand, but in fact, he knew very well that he had already mobilized powerful energy. Although a rank 6 physical body was only 1 level higher than a rank 5 physical body, its combat strength was much stronger. If not for the fact that his opponent's energy attack was weak, he would have been defeated long ago. Although his opponent was injured, his aura was not weak at all. Instead, Zichun felt a strong threat. Buzz. Light appeared on Yuri's body. Divine light surrounded him like a rainbow, constantly changing. An even more terrifying aura emerged, and boundless divine light shrouded heaven and earth. As if a heavenly might had descended, the surrounding battle paused. Everyone turned to look ahead. The robe on Yuri's body disappeared and was replaced by a set of colorful battle armor. The pressure that was like the might of the heavens was emanating from the battle armor. Even if Zichun didn't understand the grade of armor, he knew that it was a high-grade armor. Yuri's really got a high-grade armor. Martin and Lunk were shocked to see this. Previously, they felt that Yuri's was not wearing armor, which was very unusual. They didn't expect him to be hiding a high-grade armor. In order to forge such a battle armor, the requirements for the materials used were extremely high. It was said that at the very least, one would need to use materials from a grade 6 heavenly beast to forge it. Even some weapon forgers who were not that skilled would need to use grade 7 heavenly beast materials to forge it. Now, Yuri's, who had a rank 6 physical body, was using a high-grade armor. It was as if a tiger had grown wings, and his combat strength had increased several times. Under such circumstances, would Zichun still be a match for him? Both Lunk and Martin started to worry. Zichun's expression became serious. The aura emitted by his opponent was much stronger than his. Go to hell. Yuri's rushed forward and clenched his fist. Divine light shrouded heaven and earth like a canopy. His fist broke through the canopy. The void was constantly distorted. The fist, which was surrounded by colorful light, carried a destructive aura. Zichun clenched his fist and mobilized all his strength. The yin and yang forces on the surface of his fist became very active at this moment. When the two fists met, heaven and earth suddenly trembled. A wave visible to the naked eye spread out. Zichun was sent flying for the first time. His body flew backward, and the yin and yang light on the surface of his body dimmed. Zichun's expression changed, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Seeing Zichun coughing up blood, Luoi frowned in the distance. Martin and Lunk, on the other hand, were extremely worried as they rushed forward. Whoosh! Whoosh! Several beams of divine light appeared and blocked Martin and Lunk. Na Man, who had been nervous all this time, was finally relieved. After using his strongest move, the gap between the two was very obvious. He believed that even if Zichun had other moves that he had not used, it would not be Lord Yuri's. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Zichun's hand flashed and his saber appeared in his hand. The high-grade armor had increased Yuri's combat strength again. This made him feel strained. Naturally, he had to use his saber. Whoosh! With a flash of divine light, he disappeared on the spot and appeared beside Yuri's as if he had teleported. He unsheathed his saber. The yin and yang light shone, and the saber radiance shot forward. Boom! Yuri's turned around and punched. When his fist landed, the saber radiance exploded. Zichun's figure flashed again and appeared on the other side. Then, he slashed again. One attack after another appeared. The saber slashed down again and again. Wearing a high-grade armor, Yuri's combat strength had not only increased, but his speed had also increased significantly. All of Zichun's attacks were destroyed by his fists. It's useless. The difference between our realms is like heaven and earth, he said coldly. His aura was extremely strong. Zichun smiled. His smile was sarcastic and mocking. Is that so? As his laughter fell, the void distorted and 8 saber ancestors' steels appeared from the void. Chapter 29-27. Inside the domain, Yuri's expression changed. Even though he was wearing an upper-tier armor, he still felt a sense of pressure. Zichun stood in the domain, surrounded by the light of yin and yang. He rose into the air with a cold expression. The 8 saber ancestors' steels began to tremble and sharp saber will emerged. When Lunk and Martin saw this, they knew that this was Zichun's powerful killing move. Their hearts were filled with anticipation. Na Man was very confident in Master Yuri's. However, when he saw the confident smile on Zichun's face, he somehow felt uneasy. Go to hell. The pressure in Yuri's heart grew. He roared and rushed forward. Rays of divine light emerged from his body, and a powerful aura was released from his armor. A long spear with divine light appeared in his hand. He thrust the spear forward, and an ear-piercing sound rang through the sky. The domain was immediately filled with divine light. In the eyes of the people outside, there was nothing but divine light. A sharp whistling sound rang through the domain. The spear stabbed directly at Zichun's chest. If such a powerful attack landed on Zichun without the protection of armor, it would not only penetrate his chest, but also shatter his body. Buzz. At this moment, Zichun unsheathed his saber. The saber light slashed forward like a waterfall. The saber will from the saber ancestor's steels fell. The 8 saber wills fell on the saber light one after another. The saber light and the long spear collided. There was a roar in the domain. The boundless divine light that shrouded the domain dissipated. Everyone could see what was in the domain again. Yuri's, who was wearing an upper-tier armor, was sent flying. What? Seeing this, everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. Yuri's, who had a rank 6 body and an upper-tier armor, was no match for Zichun, who was a rank 5. Buzz. At this moment, the domain rippled again. 8 saber wills fell from the sky and landed on the long saber again. The blade slashed forward and met the long spear in Yuri's hand again. The energy vibrated. Yuri's long spear fell from his hand. He was sent flying again and hit the barrier, causing ripples. He looked in front of him in shock. Zichun's third slash fell. He let out a loud shout as he clenched his fists and crossed them in front of him. A divine light defense appeared. The saber gleam descended, and a powerful energy swept out. Yuri's had nowhere to retreat. With his back against the barrier, his energy wreaked havoc, stirring up even more ripples behind him, causing the barrier to distort. The light of his armor dimmed visibly, as if it could not withstand the power contained in the saber light. A look of shock appeared on his face, and then it turned into a deep fear. It should be known that he was wearing a high-grade armor. Even a rank 6 physical body would not be able to break through such an armor easily. However, this rank 5 physical body in front of him only used a few attacks and his defense was about to crumble. Boom! The energy trembled and rumbled. The divine light rolled away like a wave and then dispersed. The surface defense of the upper grade armor was shattered. Under Yuri's terrified expression, the blade swept across his neck. Blood splattered everywhere as his head was separated from his body. Although the upper armor was powerful, Zichun's attack was not weak either. Together with the blade realm, he could still break through the armor. The domain disappeared, and Yuri's body was taken away. Zichun turned around and looked at the Blood Scorpion Legion members. Run! Their faces were filled with fear as they ran away without hesitation. Do you think you can run? Zichun's eyes glinted coldly as he disappeared from where he stood. He arrived in front of one of them. A rumble sounded again as a powerful attack was displayed. He killed one person in 2 attacks. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Zichun's speed was comparable to teleportation. He flashed in front of the escaping god generals and killed one of them in 2 simple attacks. On the other side, Luoi also erupted, and a powerful force surged. After a while, the battle ended. The Blood Scorpion Legion members were all killed. Naman was also killed by Luoi. Martin and Lunk had not participated in the battle. At this moment, there was only shock in their eyes. On the battlefield, brilliance flashed as the spoils were collected by Zichun and Luoi. Zichun was somewhat surprised by Luoi's strength. Although he knew that Luoi was not weak, he did not expect him to be this strong. Such strength should have been on the God Realm's role of generals. However, Zichun did not know much about the God Realm's role of generals and had never heard of Luoi's name. Moreover, Luoi had been here for who knew how many years. Perhaps he was not from this era. Let's go. There was still one last layer, and it was clearly the most crucial one. Yuri's had chosen to act here to get rid of the trouble so that he could rest assured and search for opportunities. A barrier appeared on this layer, blocking everyone outside. Although they did not know how to break restrictions, all restrictions in the world could be broken by force as long as they were strong enough. The gold and silver light on Zichun's body flashed once more as boundless power gathered in his right hand. He clenched his fist and punched forward. The spatial barrier twisted, and powerful fluctuations spread out. Buzz. Next to Zichun, Luoi stabbed out with his sword. The sword light became incomparably bright and carried with it a terrifying aura. The two attacked together, and the barrier began to tremble. Boom! The barrier shattered, and the entrance appeared. Let's go. Seeing the entrance, the group of people flashed and flew forward. When they arrived at the last layer, an intense pressure appeared in the space. This layer was different from the previous layers, which were empty. There were many white bones here. These white bones were all beast bones, and they were so huge that they looked like mountains of bones piled up there. No one knew how long they had been dead. They were all facing forward, and the flesh on their bodies had long disappeared, leaving only their skeletons. Some of the hard skeletons showed signs of weathering. As far as the eye could see, the skeletons were spread out over a radius of several hundred feet. In front of these skeletons stood a huge rock. The huge rock was blocked by the mountain of bones, and only spiritual senses could see it. Spiritual senses covered the entire area, and they saw that the beast bones were all facing the huge rock, surrounding it. This scene was similar to when many heavenly beasts came here and knelt down facing the huge rock. For some reason, they all died here after kneeling down. Everyone's faces were full of shock, not only because there were bones everywhere, but also because there was a shiny round crystal in each of the bones. Those were the inner cores of heavenly beasts, which could only be formed in the bodies of Tier 5 heavenly beasts. They were different from the crystals of heavenly beasts outside. Each of these inner cores was equivalent to a 5-headed heavenly python, and there were close to 1,000 of them. Everyone was shocked, and their expressions became excited. This was a huge amount of wealth. At this moment, light surged behind them, and another group of people walked in. After seeing everything around them, everyone's face was full of shock, and then they cried out in alarm. Zichun and Luo immediately turned around and looked at the group of people warily. Don't misunderstand, we're on the same side, on the same side. Chapter 29-28. Earlier, when they arrived, Martin had used his communication bead to inform the legions. They had followed Martin's directions and arrived here. He had done this out of goodwill for everyone's safety, but unexpectedly, Zichen and Luo were so strong that they were able to end the battle with just the two of them. Moreover, there were great opportunities here. There were nearly 1,000 inner cores, the lowest of which was rank 5. There might even be rank 6 inner cores. Who wouldn't be envious of them? This was a fortune that would tempt even the legions. It was easy to start a war for this fortune. Martin stood in the middle with an awkward expression. Hearing Martin's words, Zichun and Luo did not let down their guard. Instead, they became even more vigilant. Martin, are these our gains? The leader's eyes flashed as he looked ahead, and his expression became excited. Martin did not know how to answer. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Many golden lights flew out of Zichen's body. These lights flew out and turned into human figures. There were more than 1,000 of them, and they landed on the mountain of bones. These were all clones that Zichen had learned from the devil ape. They landed on the mountain of bones, immediately picked up the inner cores of the heavenly beasts, and flew back. When the legions saw this, their expressions changed. How could they let strangers take away such a large fortune? You're courting death. The person who spoke earlier shouted angrily. Divine light surged on his body, releasing the aura of a rank 6. Zichun stepped forward. Yin-yang light surged out of his body, dyeing half the sky. A violent aura surged around him, and the space around him began to distort. Although he was only a rank 5, his aura was no weaker than a rank 6. Yuli's, who was also a rank 6, had turned into a huge high-quality human-shaped divine crystal. The other legions were on high alert, staring ahead indifferently. In the midst of the confrontation, Zichen's clones began to return with the inner cores of the heavenly beasts. Behind the rank 6, the legions were anxious. How could they let strangers take away so many resources? We're on the same side. Everyone, don't fight. Sensing the abnormal atmosphere, Martin hurriedly said, Don't misunderstand. Don't fight. Luan-Ku also stepped forward. By now, Zichun had already collected all the heavenly beasts' inner cores. Although the remaining skeletons were still a considerable amount of wealth, most of them had already been eroded, and their quality had dropped greatly, and they were not as valuable as the inner cores. Martin, what's going on? You didn't discover the ruins? The rank 6 frowned, looking displeased. No one would be happy to see these inner cores being taken away. The legions had been fighting for years, and they might not even be able to obtain so many heavenly beast inner cores. I didn't discover it. It's like this. Martin told them what had happened and how they had come here. Even so, the two of you can still get half of it. What's the big deal if he takes it all by himself? That rank 6 was still dissatisfied. Zichen ignored him and flew toward the core of the skeleton. Luoi glanced at the crowd and followed Zichen forward. Drew, it's not like that. The two of us didn't do anything. It was the two of them who resolved the crisis. Yuri's was also killed by Zichen, Martin explained. Juris? Which Juris? Drew was stunned. Who else is Juris among the people you and I know? Martin asked. Drew's expression changed, and so did the legions who had come with him. That person only had a rank 5 physical body. How could he kill a rank 6 Juris? How is that possible? However, Martin obviously wouldn't lie about something like this. Looking at their changing expressions, Martin said, Juris was wearing a superior grade armor at the time. As soon as he said this, their expressions changed again. Looking at Zichen's back that was about to disappear into the mountain of bones, their eyes were filled with shock. Just how strong was the other party to be able to break through a high-grade armor? At the same time, they were also filled with joy. They understood why Martin had tried to stop them through voice transmission. Lunk and I didn't do anything from the beginning to the end. The things here should belong to Zichen and Luoi, Martin said in the end. Drew's expression changed. He didn't expect things to turn out like this. If that was the case, his words earlier were obviously too much. Moreover, he could see that Martin's praise for the two of them was obviously meant to rope them into the legions. However, his arrival had caused some changes in the situation. Lunk glanced at the beast bones around them. Zichen hadn't taken them away. Obviously, he had left them for the two of them. In that case, Zichen was clearly offended by Drew's words. However, speaking of which, even if the beast bones were a little weathered, there were a lot of them. Naturally, they were a rich resource. Lunk sighed. Compared to these things, he was more willing to let Zichen join the legions because his combat strength was too strong. He would be of great help to the legions when they ventured into the depths. What should we do? Drew frowned. You didn't say it clearly earlier. I'm not sure either. Let's go over first, Martin said. Zichen and Luoi came to the giant rock in the middle of the beast bones. The rock was dark brown and stained with blood. Other than that, there was nothing special about it. Luoi circled the rock and said, It's a very ordinary blood-stained rock. The blood has already dried up. It looks like it's no longer useful. Zichen's spiritual senses landed on the rock. He felt a fluctuation from it. This fluctuation was very strong and even made him feel threatened. There's a fluctuation. Can't you feel it? Is that so? Let me feel it carefully. Luoi came to Zichen's side and extended his spiritual sense forward. This time, his expression was much more serious. A group of heavenly beasts no lower than the 5th stage had died in front of this rock. If one were to say that this rock was ordinary, no one would believe it. After a while, Luoyi's expression changed. He said, There really is a strong fluctuation. I wonder what it is. Zichen shook his head, indicating that he didn't know. Luoi walked forward, and the divine sword appeared in his hand. He said, Let's try to break it. Zichen didn't say anything. It wasn't clear whether he was agreeing or not. Luoi slashed down with his sword. The surroundings were illuminated by the divine light, and the dark brown rock became clearer. There were some ancient marks on it. Clang! The divine sword light fell, and sparks flew. Luoyi's body was pushed back. Zichen knew that Luoi had 2 weapons. This strike wasn't his full strength. Luoi steadied himself and said with a serious expression, No, it's very sturdy. I can't break it even if I use my full strength. Why don't you try? Let's try to comprehend it first. Zichen shook his head, indicating that he refused. Just like that? Luoi frowned slightly and hesitated. The previous scene made him worried. If he tried to comprehend it directly, his back would be exposed to others. Zichen smiled. He didn't trust others, but he trusted Martin and Lunk. Seeing that Zichen had let down his guard, Luoi also sat cross-legged next to him. After interacting with him, He realized that Ziqin's personality was very good. Not long after, Martin brought some people over. He seemed to want to say something to Ziqin, but when he saw Ziqin sitting cross-legged, he didn't say anything. Immediately after, they also sat cross-legged not far away and began to comprehend the things in the rock. Drew and the others looked at the rock in front of them, excitement on their faces. For this rock to appear here with so many dead heavenly beasts around it, it was obviously not normal. Chapter 29:29. Time passed, and everyone was comprehending in front of the boulder. Among the group, Ziqin felt it the most. The fluctuations in the boulder were very strong, like a strong heart beating. Thump, 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 thump. Slowly, it seemed to connect with his heart. His breathing became difficult. Ziqin's breathing became rapid. Next to him, Luoyi opened his eyes and looked at Ziqin's state. A strange light flashed in his eyes. He only felt that there was a strong fluctuation in the boulder. Other than that, he did not feel anything unusual. It was even more impossible to draw out the energy fluctuation. From the looks of it, it was clear that Ziqin had gained something. He looked at Ziqin and did not continue to comprehend. The others around him were still comprehending with their eyes closed, but they all seemed to be like him. They did not gain anything and were just pretending to be calm. Ziqin's breathing became more and more rapid, and his movements became louder and louder. The others opened their eyes and looked at Ziqin curiously. Did he gain something? Everyone was stunned, and their expressions were somewhat complicated. They could only feel the energy, but they could not draw it out. Then, some people were unwilling to give up and continued to comprehend with their eyes closed. Not long after, Ziqin opened his eyes. His eyes became ferocious and full of murderous intent. He shouted, "Retreat!" Looking at Ziqin's current state, Luoyi knew that something was wrong and immediately retreated. Divine light flashed on his body, and he displayed the fleet-foot stride to the extreme. Martin and the others also retreated without hesitation. Almost as they retreated, a fluctuation appeared from the boulder and spread in all directions. As the fluctuation passed, the few people who had closed their eyes to comprehend and could not escape in time seemed to be frozen in place. The fluctuation spread out in all directions like a wave, passing through these people's bodies and the distant mountains of bones, and then retreating like a wave. However, when it retreated, the skeletons around them turned into dust and scattered. The remaining energy in them was brought back by the wave. The wave entered the boulder with the energy, and the skeletons that were previously everywhere disappeared. The few people who had not retreated in time also turned into dust and disappeared. Their armors, divine rings, souls, and bodies all disappeared. Luoyi and the others retreated far away and looked ahead in shock. There was only Ziqin sitting cross-legged there. There was no one else beside him. At the same time, he rejoiced in his heart. If he hadn't reacted quickly, he would have disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Drew looked ahead, his eyes filled with regret. In an instant, his side had lost 5 people. In the last battle, his team had suffered great losses and urgently needed new recruits to replenish their numbers. This time, they didn't gain anything and actually lost another 5. Martin looked ahead, feeling a lingering fear in his heart, but he didn't say anything. They had all seen Ziqin's abnormal situation, so they stopped trying to comprehend it. As for the 5 who had died, they had clearly seen this as well. However, they were unwilling to let Ziqin obtain this opportunity. With Ziqin's reminder, they reacted and retreated in time. Because the 5 of them continued to comprehend, they didn't react, or rather, they didn't believe it. Speaking of which, he had only himself to blame. At this moment, everyone was standing in the distance, looking ahead. No one dared to step forward. They spread out their divine senses and saw that Ziqin's expression had become very ferocious and full of killing intent. His eyes were faintly blood-red, and his entire person became bloodthirsty. Ziqin was in a very bad state at this moment. When he was comprehending earlier, he heard a heartbeat in the boulder. The sound gradually overlapped with his heartbeat, and an invisible force invaded his sea of consciousness. He didn't know what this force was, and he couldn't see the essence of this force. However, The other party could control his emotions. A crazy desire to kill appeared in his heart. This emotion urged him to kill everyone here. Zichen's soul was so powerful that he naturally wouldn't be trapped. Just as he was resisting this will, he sensed that the aura in the boulder was becoming stronger and stronger. Thus, he opened his eyes and warned. There were still people who couldn't escape and had died. This shocked him. He also wanted to escape this place, but he found that his body couldn't move. However, he was also unharmed. At that moment, the will that was controlling Zichen became even more tyrannical. Murderous intent filled the air and controlled Zichen to kill. Kill them, and you will become stronger. As long as you kill everyone, you will be able to obtain my power. My power is to kill. This thought sounded in Zichen's mind, but Zichen could no longer tell if it was an external thought that spoke, or if it was the sound of slaughter that was hidden in the depths of his heart. If he couldn't tell, then he wouldn't. If he couldn't tell, then he wouldn't say it. Zichen closed his eyes again and calmed his chi. He perfectly defended himself with his spiritual sense and resisted this invading will. Gradually, the killing intent in his heart disappeared. His body and mind became calm. He expelled that will. Die. However, just as he expelled this will, Zichen heard a cold voice. The huge rock in front of him exploded. The broken pieces of rock shot out in all directions like hidden weapons. Light appeared on Zichen's body. The broken pieces fell on the light, causing ripples. At this moment, a white light appeared and rushed towards Zichen. With a bang, the defense on the surface of his body was shattered. The white light went straight into his mind. The white light entered his mind and turned into a bolt of lightning. It was full of aggression. It wreaked havoc on Zichen's soul. It was very violent. Zichen's consciousness returned to his mind and turned into a golden figure. He stared coldly in front of him. It was a ball of lightning. It was obviously an intelligent creature. The aura on the surface of its body was very violent. As a thunder martial artist, he was sure that it was the aura of thunder. However, it was a thunder aura that he had never seen before. Extraterrestrial thunder? Zichen frowned slightly. Die. After the ball of lightning saw Zichen, it immediately rushed toward him. Endless lightning flashed. Boom. The ball of lightning was extremely fast. It was like a meteorite. It rushed towards Zichen directly. Golden light flashed in Zichen's hand. His soul simulated a sheathed long saber. Swish. With a slash, the golden saber light illuminated the space in his mind and fell on the ball of lightning. Bang! The lightning raged. The long saber in Zichen's hand was shattered. Endless lightning extended and landed on his body. With a roar, he was sent flying. He was shocked. He didn't expect the opponent's attack to be so powerful. Buzz. The lightning trembled. The ball of lightning continued to rush forward. It didn't have any offensive moves. It just charged forward. Zichen retreated. The ball of lightning was very strong. The previous attack had injured his soul. However, the ball of lightning was very fast. It was faster than his speed. Zichen simulated the 9 flashes of lightning. It was as fast as teleportation. He appeared in another place. Buzz. But in the next moment, a scene that shocked Zichen appeared. He saw that the speed of that ball of lightning was actually not the slightest bit slower than his. As soon as his figure appeared, the bolt of lightning appeared. Then, he disappeared, and so did the other party. This is the 9 lightning deaths. After repeating this several times, Zichen's face was filled with disbelief. Unexpectedly, the other party also knew the 9 passing thunderbolts and was using it at this moment. Could it be a senior from the Thunder Clan? Zichen was extremely shocked. For the latest novel updates, please visit the website. Chapter 29:30. In everyone's eyes, Zichen stood there, motionless. Lightning flashed on his body, exuding a tyrannical aura. No one knew whether Zichen's condition was good or bad, so they stood in the distance and did not dare to go forward to check. At this moment, no one knew the shock in Zichen's heart. He actually saw the lightning ball using the 9 passing thunderbolts. It was the fastest speed in the world, and only the Thunder Clan could do it. Was this lightning ball related to the Thunder Clan? Whoosh! He slashed with the long saber in his hand again, and the golden saber light cut through the sky, carrying a powerful aura. Bang! The saber light missed its target. Zichen's figure shook, and his body flew out diagonally. The soul light on the surface of his body became dim at this moment. The lightning ball stood where he was before, and lightning surrounded his body. Too fast. He was extremely shocked as he flew out. At this moment, the lightning ball not only used the 9 passing thunderbolts, but also suppressed him in speed. The long saber in his hand slashed horizontally, and the saber light flashed across the sky. His soul power was constantly consumed, but he could not hit the lightning ball even once. On the contrary, Zichen was hit by the lightning ball again and again, and then flew back again and again. Flying back again, Zichen gritted his teeth fiercely. Buzz! A divine light appeared. It was the sky-piercing magic needle, which was completely simulated by the soul. It flew toward the lightning ball. Whoosh! The lightning disappeared, and the sky-piercing magic needle pierced through. It still missed. The lightning ball was getting faster and faster, even faster than the sky-piercing magic needle. Damn it! What the hell is this? Zichun cursed. The void trembled again, and the 8 saber ancestors' steels appeared. In this soul world, this was still a simulated attack, and after it appeared, it formed the saber domain. In the domain, the pressure rose sharply, and the lightning ball slowed down slightly. Zichun entered the domain, holding the long saber in his hand. Boundless soul power was injected into the long saber as energy at this moment, and the saber light became stronger and stronger. The soul aura burst out. Buzz! Zichen drew his saber, and his spiritual light flickered. Then, 8 strands of saber intent fell from the saber ancestor's steel floating in his domain. This move was the same as it was in the outside world. The only difference was that it was simulated using soul force. This was a soul attack. With a slash of the saber, boundless pressure was generated. The speed of the lightning ball was reduced again, and it was locked in place by the saber light. The ball of lightning no longer tried to escape and turned into a human form. However, it was very small, like a newborn baby. However, the aura on his body was incomparably tyrannical. He stood there as if he was the master of the world. With an indifferent expression, he stared at Zichun and said coldly, "You think you can destroy me?" The other party was very short, like a newborn baby. When he said such words with a serious face, the scene should be very funny and cute. However, Zichun did not feel this way. He felt an endless pressure in his heart. The other party punched. A small fist flickering with electric light landed on the saber. These 2 attacks did not match at all. Logically speaking, the saber light should not only crush this small fist but also cut the other party's body in half. However, the result was, boom, the saber light shattered, and the entire saber domain started to tremble. Horror appeared on Zichen's face. He did not expect the ball of light that turned into a human form to be so terrifying. Again. However, Xiao Chun was not weak, either. He had a perfect soul. In his spiritual world, the perfect soul was the true master. Another saber fell. At the same time, the heaven-connecting divine needle appeared and shot at the other party. When the 2 attacks were flying forward, Zichen's hands flashed with light. Yin-yang energy appeared. This was still not the true yin-yang energy. It was simulated by soul force. This was the master of the spiritual world. Here, he could simulate any external attack. The yin-yang energy merged and turned into a yin-yang thunder lotus. This should be one of Zichen's strongest attacks. Usually, such an attack could end a battle. The saber domain trembled, and the saber light shattered again. The small figure in front burst out with horrifying power. After destroying the saber light with a punch, he shattered the heaven-connecting divine needle with another punch. Go! At this moment, the yin-yang thunder lotus color turned extremely dark. It flew forward. After seeing the yin-yang thunder lotus, the lightning figure's indifferent expression turned slightly serious. However, he did not stop. He charged forward and punched. The lightning fist illuminated the surroundings and landed on the yin-yang thunder lotus. The thunder lotus, which was already unstable, exploded at this moment. The lightning figure was drowned in the energy of the explosion. Zichen's eyes were filled with indifference. This attack was already very powerful, and it was one of his most powerful attacks. His opponent did not dodge, and instead charged forward recklessly. The most powerful attack of the Thunder Lotus would land on him. Amid the rumbling of the energy, a figure flew out. Seeing the lightning figure, Zichen's expression changed. He was very surprised. Not only did the other party not die, the light on the surface of his body only dimmed slightly. How is this possible? Just as Zichen was shocked, he saw the other party turn around and fly towards the barrier of the domain. When he reached the barrier, he clenched his fist and punched. Lightning flashed on the surface of his body, releasing a violent aura. This was a different kind of lightning. Zichen suspected that it came from outer space. Boom. When the punch landed, the barrier trembled and twisted violently. Boom. When the second punch landed, the 8 saber ancestors' steels were shaken out. They trembled in the sky, creating ripples. Boom. When the third punch landed, the domain trembled violently and exploded. Even the saber ancestors' steels that were manifested by the soul shattered. When the domain was forcibly shattered, Zichen's aura immediately weakened. The lightning figure turned around, and his cold eyes fell on Zichen. The light on Zichen's body dimmed. He had used up a lot of his soul power. However, in the next moment, the golden light on his body shone again. His previously weakened aura became strong again. It was as if his previous consumption had been completely replenished at this moment. The lightning figure's cold eyes flickered. Without hesitation, his body flashed and he forcibly left Zichen's world. Phew! Zichen, whose body was glowing with a golden light, let out a heavy breath. That tiny lightning figure was too terrifying. In his spiritual world, he felt an immense pressure. After all, this was a place of life and death. It was best not to fight here. It was naturally better for the other party to leave to the outside world. Compared to fighting in the soul, Zichen was more suitable to fight in the outside world. He opened his eyes. The lightning figure appeared in front of him. However, at this moment, the other party was no longer in the form of a small figure. He was as tall as an 11 or 12-year-old boy. The lightning surging around his body was even more terrifying. Chapter 29:31. Hearing this, Zichen was a little surprised. He then smiled and said, "Coincidentally, this is also my strength." Golden light flickered under Zichen's feet, illuminating the surroundings as he took the initiative to attack. Suddenly, lightning flashed in front of his eyes. A fist followed the lightning and landed on Zichen's body. Boom! Boundless lightning exploded on Zichen's body, sending him flying backward. As he flew backward, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Zichen spat out blood and stopped a few hundred feet away. The others stood in the distance, not daring to come forward. They were also very surprised when they saw a light fly out of Zichen's body and turn into a young man. Immediately after, the young man sent Zichen flying and even injured him. Roy, Martin, and Lunk were very clear about Zichen's strength. Now that they saw Zichen being injured with a single punch, they were very shocked. Just how powerful was that young man who was emitting lightning? Drew and the others were also very shocked. However, they were not shocked by the young man's strength, but by his speed. In an instant, they would not have been able to dodge that speed at all. In terms of speed, do you think you're my match? The young man looked at Zichen with extreme contempt. Swish! His figure flashed, and the next time he appeared, he was already beside Zichen. At the same time, Zichen's figure disappeared. Immediately after, the young man disappeared again and reappeared behind Zichen. Zichen disappeared again, and when he reappeared, the young man was already standing behind him, striking out a powerful blow. With the sound of wind and thunder, Zichen disappeared again, and this blow missed. The young man snorted coldly and then disappeared. In the extreme speed competition, the young man's speed became faster and faster, while Zichen was clearly much slower. The spectators were very shocked because Zichen's speed was already very fast. They did not expect the young man to be even faster. Buzz! With such a clear gap, Zichen was about to be seriously injured by his opponent again. Suddenly, a strong light erupted from his body, and his speed suddenly increased. He directly appeared behind the young man. Boom! He punched out, and the lightning youth flew forward. At the same time, Zichun was also retreating. In that instant, a repulsive force came from the lightning youth. This force entered his body, and he felt his body begin to feel numb. One had to know that he was also a thunder martial artist, but he was actually paralyzed by the power of lightning. The lightning youth turned around and stared coldly at Zichun. Right now, Zichun had 12 heavenly thunder wings on his back. It was the appearance of the heavenly thunder wings that increased his speed once more. In normal battles, there was no need to use the heavenly thunder wings at all. Using this kind of extreme speed, he was the fastest in the world among those of the same level. The Thunderbolt teenager sized up Zichun and said with satisfaction, "Not bad. Other than the fact that his physical body is ridiculously weak, I am very satisfied with everything else. You're the one." Shameless boasting. Zichun snorted coldly. His figure flickered as he unleashed the 9 passing thunderbolts. At the same time, he unsheathed the saber in his hand. This was the true 9 Extremes weapon, not something formed from the soul. No matter how strong the other party was, it was impossible for him to shatter it. Wong. The saber was unsheathed and slashed at the other party. With the heavenly thunder wings, his speed was faster than the other party, so he was not worried that this attack could not hit the target. Facing this flashing saber light, the lightning youth did not dodge. Instead, he punched out forcefully. The fist and the saber collided. With a loud bang, the saber in Zichun's hand did not shatter, but it flew out of his hand. At the same time, his body was also forcefully sent flying. How is this possible? Zichun was shocked. His all-out attack was actually neutralized by a single punch? In terms of physical body, I am the strongest in the world. The lightning youth said coldly and confidently, "So, you are very suitable for me." The lightning youth took a step forward. The void trembled violently, and the lightning fist broke through the air. Zichun crossed his arms in front of him. Divine light surrounded his body, and a powerful aura burst out. The divine light lit up the sky, and the strong light formed a defense. With a loud bang, the divine light disappeared. Zichun's body was sent flying again. The light on his high-grade armor immediately dimmed. "It's a high-grade armor." Exclamations came from afar. Drew and the others did not know how powerful Zichun was, so they could not judge the strength of the lightning youth through Zichun. But at this moment, the high-grade armor on Zichun's body was broken by a single punch, which was enough to prove the strength of the lightning youth. Zichun instantly switched between his real body and his doppelganger. He used the high-grade armor that the doppelganger had just obtained to form a defense. Otherwise, he would be injured by the punch again. After the attack, the doppelganger turned into his real body. The space around began to distort. 8 saber ancestor steels appeared, forming a saber domain. Seeing this domain, the lightning youth frowned and attacked the barrier. He did not like this domain. Swoosh! Zichun rushed forward and slashed down. 8 saber intents surrounded the saber and slashed down. The lightning youth clenched his fist and punched the air. He did not use any weapon, but his fist was more terrifying than any weapon in the world. Amidst the rumbling sound, the saber light shattered as expected, and Zichun was sent flying. Again. Zichun was not convinced. When he rushed forward again, light fell from above his head. It was the power of rules. The rules stabilized his body and slashed down. Lightning flashed on the lightning youth's body. A powerful aura was released, and the rules around him collapsed. Then, he punched again and shattered the saber. "My physical body is the strongest in the world," the lightning youth said coldly. His words were full of confidence. "The strongest? I don't believe it." Zichun's eyes were filled with madness. A black hole appeared in the sky. The black hole continued to expand and came down, shrouding the entire saber domain. The black hole was Zichun's world. It was his last trump card. Bringing people into his world naturally meant a life and death battle. It was either live or die. Those in the distance could only see the black hole that was constantly devouring. Other than that, they could not see anything. They looked at each other in dismay. As for going forward to investigate, they obviously did not have the guts. One had to know that the lightning youth's punch had broken the high-grade armor's defense. If they were to go forward, they would probably be killed with one punch. In the world, Zichun still did not withdraw the domain. The world rules could easily pass through the domain and fall on the lightning youth. What is this place? The lightning youth raised his head and looked around. There was confusion in his cold eyes. I feel the same aura as you. It must be related to you, right? Very well, you don't have to tell me. I'll slowly find out after I refine you. The lightning youth said again. Zichun said coldly, is that so? What a coincidence. I've also taken a fancy to your physical body. My physical body is the strongest. You want to take it away? The lightning youth sneered. He looked at the barrier around him and was about to attack. Your physical body is not strong here. As Zichen's voice fell, the divine clone walked over from the other side. This time, he did not wear armor and walked straight into the domain. You're courting death. The lightning youth smiled coldly and rushed forward. Even though his speed was affected, he was still faster than the divine clone. His fist struck the avatar, and the avatar's body trembled. Its flesh and bones were separated from its body, and it turned into dust before vanishing. A skeleton flickering with divine light appeared. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 2932. Looking at the skeleton in front of him, the lightning youth's eyes flashed with surprise. The body is not strong, but the bones are extremely hard. Seeing this scene, Zichen's heart was filled with shock. How could the body of the deity's avatar not be strong? It was at least equivalent to a fifth-grade body. He didn't expect to be separated by the opponent's fist. Moreover, the body was directly turned into powder. If it were another fifth-grade body, this blow would have disappeared. Fortunately, the deity's avatar had the heavenly god's bone. Even if the energy was lost, it was hard enough to block the opponent's attack. This was also the main reason why Zichun chose to use the world. The people outside were all Protoss, and they were all divine generals. They were very sensitive to the aura of the Protoss. If they sensed the heavenly god's bone, the consequences would be unimaginable. He still understood the principle that an innocent man would be guilty because of his wealth. Therefore, he used the world to block everything and left everything to the avatar. In the face of such an existence, only the avatar could resist. However, Zichun still had to stand guard outside. After all, this was his world, and he was the absolute master here. Those who came were guests, so he naturally had to entertain them. Light fell from the sky, and those lights were rules. There were many different rules in each light, and these rules were all related to gravity. The domain scattered, and the Saber Ancestor's steel disappeared. The rules fell on the lightning youth. These rules were derived from the perfect world over the years. Zichun didn't need to comprehend all of them. He was the master and could have absolute control. The rules fell on the youth, and the lightning on the surface of the youth's body became a little dimmer. A ripple of emotion appeared on his cold face. This was just the beginning, not the end. Light fell from the sky again, and there were rules in the light. This time, they affected speed. Many rules could affect speed, and all of them fell on the lightning youth. This was the hospitality of Zichun, the master of the world. The deity's avatar, which had become the heavenly god's bone, moved. He rushed forward, and there was divine light on the surface of his body, but it was not strong. The lightning youth shouted loudly, and endless lightning surged from the surface of his body, trying to shake off these negative rules. However, it was useless. The support of a world's rules was not something that could be easily broken free from. However, the light on the surface of his body became bright at this moment. His fist met the incoming heavenly god's bone. Boom! A powerful shockwave spread out with the two of them at the center. The clone slid backward, and the earth trembled. The lightning youth also retreated, and his cold expression changed. The doppelganger charged forward again and threw out another punch. The heavenly god's bones were extremely sturdy, and his attacks were endless. Pong! The energy vibrated again, and this time, the lightning youth was sent flying. His physical body was indeed powerful. Even when facing the attack of the heavenly god's bone, his bones did not shatter. Zichun watched silently from the side. After arriving in his world, this battle was as good as over. No matter how strong the other party was, it was impossible for them to break through his world. What's more, he still had a divine clone in his world. He was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he watched silently from the side. The other party kept saying that he wanted to refine him. Little did he know that in Zichun's eyes, the other party's lightning was also very attractive to him. He also wanted to refine the other party to strengthen his body. Boom! The lightning youth was sent flying again. The light on his body became dimmer and dimmer, and the pressure he felt from the world's rules also became heavier and heavier. Die! Lightning continued to flash on his body as he released a powerful aura. He had used the 9-star steps. The rules wrapped around his body, and his speed was far from being able to keep up with the clone. The clone hit his face and sent him flying again. The lightning youth was sent flying, and his expression became colder and colder. Thunder God! He looked up to the sky and let out a loud roar. His right hand clenched into a fist, and the endless light of lightning lingered around it. A light shadow appeared behind him. The light shadow was very blurry, as if it was outlined by light. If one did not look carefully, they would not notice it. But when this blurry light shadow appeared, the lightning youth's aura suddenly erupted, and the rules that shrouded him exploded with a bang. Zichun stood in the distance, and a touch of panic emerged in his heart. At this moment, the lightning energy in his body seemed to be out of control. It began to fear, or rather, it became agitated. Was it because of that illusory light shadow? Was he really the Thunder God? But my current power is equivalent to that of a divine general. Zichun did not understand, and his heart was shocked. The lightning youth punched out, and the boundless shining fist light pierced through the surrounding space like sharp blades. Boom! There was an even more intense tremor. The earth cracked, and the mountains exploded. The world was trembling, and there were signs of destruction. The divine clone flew back thousands of feet. The heavenly god's bones in his body were not damaged, but his soul was shaken, and he fainted. After a powerful blow, the lightning youth's aura immediately became weak. He went from a powerful state to an extremely weak one. The illusory light shadow behind him disappeared. The fear in Zichun's heart also disappeared, and then he walked forward. He could feel that the lightning youth's aura had become very unstable, and his soul seemed to dissipate at any time. He walked to the youth's side. The youth looked up at Zichun and said bitterly, "You came too early. If you were a little later, you would have died." Zichun did not understand what he meant. He saw the youth's aura dissipate. His body turned into a ball of lightning again. This time, although the ball of lightning was violent, it was not aggressive, and it flew toward Zichun. Zichun reached out, and the ball of lightning fell on his hand. It kept shrinking, and finally turned into a bolt of lightning. This bolt of lightning was very powerful, and its aura was different. It disappeared in his hand. The next moment, the bolt of lightning entered his body and entered his heart through his meridians. The moment the power entered his heart, it formed a powerful suction force. The power of his physical body immediately gathered toward his heart, and his aura instantly became weak. It was as if at this moment, all the power in his body was swallowed by his heart. The next moment, his heart began to beat, and new blood emerged and gathered in his body. The power of lightning surged in his blood. It was that special power, and a powerful aura erupted from his body. Boundless lightning appeared from within and filled his entire body. The power of lightning continued to wreak havoc, making him feel as if his body was being torn apart by lightning. He looked up to the sky and roared, letting out a painful cry. The divine clone, who had fainted, was awakened by his cry. He shook his skull, and the dim soul flame burned again. The attack just now had directly knocked him out. Chapter 29:33. Everyone stood in the distance, looking at the black hole in front of them. When their gazes met, they would look at each other. The battle had continued until now, and they did not know how it was going. They did not know if Zichun was suppressing that young man. At this moment, Drew and the others no longer had any doubts about Zichun's combat strength. That young man was really terrifying. Zichun had proven that he was extraordinary by being able to fight alone until now. Roy frowned. He did not expect to encounter such a terrifying existence in such an ordinary place. Among everyone present, only Zichun had the ability to fight against such an existence. If Zichun had not come today, everyone would have died. Martin and Lunk were very anxious. The two of them had seen Zichun's strength and had always wanted to rope him into the Legion. Not only Zichun, but Zichun's friends were also not weak. If everyone could join the team, the Legion's combat strength would increase greatly. The two of them did not want anything to happen to Zichun. After waiting anxiously for a while, the black light in front of them disappeared, and Zichun appeared from it. He stood there, his aura fluctuating between strong and weak. His face was pale, and his vitality seemed to be severely damaged. "Are you okay?" Roy walked forward. "I'm fine." Zichun shook his head. "You don't look fine." Roy came closer and looked him up and down. Zichun smiled. Roy was the first to come forward, obviously worried that the others would be disadvantageous to him in this state. Martin and Lunk came forward. Zichun's aura was indeed very weak, but there was an indescribable horror to it. Drew and the others did not come forward and continued to stand in the distance. They were shocked by Zichun's strength, but at the same time, they were very depressed. They came here with nothing and lost 5 people for no reason. It should be known that these 5 people were all 5th grade. In addition, the Legion's assessment was very strict. They did not know how long it would take to recruit them. This loss was too great. The battle was over, and there were no more opportunities here. Naturally, everyone would disperse. Martin looked at Zichun and asked, "Zichun, what do you plan to do next?" Zichun said, "Let's go back to the city first. Everyone is still waiting for me. I have to tell them that I'm safe." Martin nodded, but in the end, he didn't say what he wanted to say. Then Martin looked at Roy and said, "Roy, you—" Before Martin could finish, Roy smiled and said, "Zichun doesn't look well. I'll send him back first." Martin was slightly startled, but he did not refuse and nodded. Lunk, on the other hand, let out a sigh of regret. It seemed that this time, not only did Zichun harbor a grudge, but even Roy's impression of the army had plummeted. Martin had done something bad with good intentions. "Big Brother Martin, this is the reward. Big Brother Martin deserves it." Zichun took out more than 200 heavenly beast inner cores and held them in his palm with his spatial manipulation, handing them over to Martin. Martin immediately shook his head and said, "Brother Zichun, you're treating us as outsiders." Behind him, Drew and the others did not speak, but their eyes flickered. Zichun smiled and said, "Big Brother Martin, don't refuse. I appreciate your kindness, but we can't let everyone come here for nothing, right?" As members of the army, these people naturally had to report to the army when they came out. This time, 5 people had died, and Martin had to report this matter when he returned, regardless of whether they deserved it or not. If this time they came back empty-handed, Martin and Lunk would not be able to explain themselves when they returned. He had kept the heavenly beast bones for Martin, but unfortunately, they had all disappeared. He could only take out about 1/5 of the heavenly beast cores to give to the two. Martin naturally did not want to accept them, and Lunk was also determined not to accept them. "Big brothers, please accept them. I still have a lot here." In the end, the two accepted the resources. Seeing the two accept the resources, Zichun said, "Big brothers, when you're free, you can come to Baylor City to find me." "Sure." The two nodded and left. Drew and the others left with the 2 of them. Only Zichun and Luo Yi were left here. Zichun's hand flashed, and more than 400 heavenly beast cores appeared. He sealed them together with a divine power and said, "These are yours." Luo Yi smiled and said, "I don't need so many." With that, he stretched out his hand and gently drew a line in front of him. After drawing about half of the heavenly beast cores, he put them away. Zichun did not insist on giving more. He had a lot of people, so naturally, he needed more resources. "Are you really okay?" Luo Yi looked at Zichun's state and frowned slightly. "Don't worry. I can fight again." The two walked out. The most important thing here was obviously that stone. After the stone disappeared, these layers of separated areas became a whole and integrated into this world. There were no more opportunities here. When the two walked out, Martin and the others had already disappeared. This is a good harvest. It's enough to cultivate for a while. Luo Yi looked ahead and said, "This kind of cultivation life is still the most desirable. Why did you suddenly not want to join?" Zichun turned to look at Luo Yi. "Martin clearly told you that you passed the test. Why did you refuse?" Zichun could guess what Martin wanted to say. Lung Sai could also explain this point. Luo Yi clearly knew it too. Luo Yi said, "It's boring. I feel that freedom is better. Of course, I can't deny that I was disgusted by that guy. I'm worried that if I really joined the army and met people like him, how bad would that be? Also, after joining the army, it seems that it will be very troublesome to leave." "That's true." Zichun nodded. "Do you want people in your team? Why don't you let me join your team?" Luo Yi suddenly turned to look at Zichun. Zichun laughed and said, "We don't hunt tier 5 heavenly beasts. Furthermore, if you really want to join, it's not a problem." Previously, Zichun had indeed not thought of bringing everyone to hunt tier 5 heavenly beasts. However, this time, he had obtained hundreds of heavenly beast inner cores. He believed that it would be enough to raise everyone's physical bodies to tier 5. If he wanted to continue growing, he would have to consider this problem. He had seen Luo Yi's battle prowess. If Luo Yi really wanted to join, he would be more than happy to. "Then it's settled. Do I need to take the test?" Luo Yi asked with a smile. "If you can send me back safely, I'll count it as you passing the test." As Zichun spoke, a powerful aura suddenly burst forth from his body. Bolts of lightning surged out from his body. Luo Yi immediately moved away, retreating far away. The lightning around Zichun's body flashed, and when it disappeared, his aura seemed to have weakened. "Are you really all right?" Luo Yi stared at him and asked. "From the looks of it, there shouldn't be any major problems." After the lightning energy entered his heart, Zichun's blood and qi started to flow out, absorbed by the lightning energy. At the same time, the lightning energy also flowed through his heart and into his body. This was also the reason why Zichun's aura was fluctuating between strong and weak. The energy that was being sent back was very small, but it was a new type of lightning energy, of high quality and extremely powerful. From the looks of it, it was as if he was about to be reborn. The two of them headed straight for Baylor City, and along the way they did not meet a single tier 5 heavenly beast. Chapter 29:34. Zichun's face was still pale, and he looked very weak. He stood there motionless. Roy stood beside him and looked ahead, his expression slowly turning solemn. Buzz. With a light tremble, the ground lit up like a sharp blade piercing through the air. The surrounding space rippled as a divine formation formed, enveloping the surroundings and trapping the two of them. The two of them looked at each other. Clearly, they had encountered an ambush. Clang, 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 clang. Light fell from the sky, turning into divine spears that pierced through the sky and flew toward the two of them with sharp, whistling sounds. Roy stepped forward with a cold expression. The divine light in his body formed a defense that expanded and enveloped Zichun. The divine spears landed on the defense, causing even more ripples. Puff, 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 puff. Who could it be? Roy looked around through the light barrier, but could not see anything except the divine spears. Zichun shook his head. "We'll know after we fight." "That's right. We'll know after we fight." Roy laughed loudly, and the divine aura surging from his body soared once more. The light barrier around him began to expand, becoming larger and larger. The divine spears falling from the sky were squeezed into less and less space. With a loud bang, the light barrier shattered, and the divine energy contained in it scattered in all directions. Everywhere it passed, the divine spears exploded. Specks of divine light fell like thousands of raindrops, and the divine spears and light barrier disappeared at the same time. "This level of formation can't do anything to us." "Show yourself," Roy said indifferently. The mid-grade armor on his body releasing a strong light. There was no response from the surroundings. A tremor came from the sky, and thousands of divine spears appeared again. When these divine spears appeared, they were all fixed in the air and did not fall. The next moment, the divine spears fused together, and divine light shot out in all directions, finally turning into a single divine spear. When this fused divine spear appeared, a terrifying aura swept through the divine formation, and divine light illuminated the entire divine formation. Buzz. With a soft tremor, ripples appeared in the surroundings as the divine spear fell. A hurricane emerged from the divine formation, and the entire divine formation began to tremble. The divine spear tore through the sky and fell. Roy thrust his sword forward, and sword light soared into the sky. A rumbling sound reverberated throughout the world as a powerful wave of energy spread out in all directions. Luo-Yi landed beside Zichun, and the divine light on his body was still strong. In the sky, the terrifying divine spear exploded. Zichun looked at Roy. With Roy's powerful combat strength, he must be in existence on the ranking of generals in the entire God realm. He might even be ranked very high. His combat strength is indeed not weak. A cold voice sounded, and a person appeared in the air. That person was wearing armor with a blood scorpion pattern on it. Blood scorpion core, rank 6. Seeing this, Roy's expression changed slightly, but he remained indifferent. That person said indifferently, "You're right, but you forgot to mention that the armor is of high quality." Luo-Yi's expression turned ugly. As a 5th rank, he was confident that he could fight a 6th rank fighter. However, if a 6th rank fighter had a high-grade armor, it would be difficult for him to deal with him. Seeing Luo-Yi's ugly expression, the 6th rank fighter from the Blood Scorpion Corps laughed. "You feel trouble just because of this?" Another wave of fluctuation appeared behind Roy and Zichun. It was also in existence with a 6th-grade physical body. The other party's armor was also a high-grade armor. Zichun turned to look at him and said indifferently, "I believe that this is not a coincidence, right? What do you think?" The 6th-rank fighter said, "Do you think you can kill our people so casually?" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Immediately after that, a few more people appeared. They were all 5th-rank fighters, and there were 6 of them in total. He wondered if the Divine Formation Master was among them. "What should I do?" Luo-Yi frowned. He did not care about these 5th-rank fighters, but a 6th-rank fighter with a high-grade armor would be troublesome. "I'll give you a high-grade armor," Zichun said with a smile. At this moment, his face was pale, and he looked very weak. Shameless boasting. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the 6th-rank fighter in front of him as he charged forward. In midair, his figure stopped. A long spear appeared out of thin air, blocking in front of him. The divine avatar walked out of the darkness and swept the spear. The avatar was also wearing a high-grade armor. At this moment, the aura it emitted was very powerful. "I'll leave the 5th-rank fighters to you." After the avatar faced one of them, Zichun's real body turned and flew toward the other. At this moment, he looked very weak because most of his chi and blood had been lost. However, he was not weak at all. On the contrary, the new power gathered in his body was very powerful. He rushed toward a 6th-rank fighter and began to mobilize the power in his body. He was mobilizing pure physical power. A bolt of lightning appeared on the surface of his body, emitting a dazzling silver light and surging with a violent aura. In the past, because he had a perfect body, the power of his body was golden. However, after the special lightning power entered his body, his power turned silver. However, this silver lightning power was much more terrifying than the golden one from before. Zichun came in front of the 6th-rank fighter and clenched his fist. Silver light shot out in all directions, illuminating the surroundings. The 6th-rank fighter snorted coldly and clenched his fist to attack. The patterns on the high-grade armor lit up, providing him with extremely powerful strength. When the two strikes collided, a boom sounded from the divine array. Powerful fluctuations scattered in all directions as the entire divine array began to distort. The 6th-rank powerhouse in the high-grade armor was sent flying backward. As he flew backward, the defensive light on his body flickered and distorted crazily before shattering with a crack. A single punch broke through his defense. After the strike, Zichun looked increasingly weak, but his eyes were extremely bright as he became even more excited. This new power was clearly more terrifying than the power condensed from the perfect body. After all, the power of the perfect body came from a page of the heavenly book. It was already the highest level of power in the world, but this lightning power was even more terrifying than the heavenly book's power. Could this power really be from beyond the heavens? With such doubts in mind, Zichun continued charging forward. As he charged forward, 9 flashes of lightning reappeared. He arrived beside the 6th-rank fighter at a speed as though he had teleported. The special lightning flashed as he punched the other party in the chest. Boom! Silver light shot out in all directions, carrying boundless power as it entered his body through the armor. The high-grade armor caved in as the crisp sound of bones shattering constantly sounded. The 6th-rank Divine General was sent flying backward. As he flew backward, he coughed out blood. His aura became dispirited until it completely disappeared. Another punch to destroy the enemy. A powerful 6th-rank fighter was killed by Zichun's 2 punches just like that. When the other saw this scene, his face revealed a look of horror as he wanted to escape. Bang! A spear arrived and struck him in the chest, sending him flying. He happened to be flying in the direction of his true body. To read the latest novel without error, please visit. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.